Chapter 641. As the white-clothed youth spoke, he disappeared from where he stood and reappeared next to Gasang Duji out of thin air. "How is it? Do you still recognize me?" The white-robed youth leaned down and looked directly at Gasandoj. "I didn't expect a wolf cub like you to live to this day." Gasandoj, who was pressed to the ground by the giant wolf, said angrily, "For more than 300 years, I have been secretly monitoring your every move, looking for an opportunity to avenge the annihilation of my family and the murder of my father. However, you have been following Golden Rock Fuang, and your cultivation has progressed considerably. The evil fruit has not ripened, and the time has not yet come, so I have not caused you any trouble. Now, in order to avenge your past life, you have held this hypocritical demon-slaying conference, framed your benefactor Evil Moon, and deceived everyone. It can be said that you are guilty of many evils, and the heavens will not tolerate it. Today, whether it is for public or private reasons, I will not let you go." As the white-robed youth spoke, his eyes narrowed and killing intent appeared. Woo, with a thought from the white-robed youth, the 7 giant snow wolves behind him stepped on the blood on the ground and bared their fangs as they surrounded Gasandoj. They wanted to tear apart this bloodthirsty, sinister, and cunning Gasandoj. The white-robed youth looked at Gasandoj with a cold smile, as if he was looking at a dead man. After more than 300 years, the blood feud of the past was finally avenged. Looking at the 7 giant wolves closing in on him, Gasandoj's face was filled with horror as he cried out in his heart, "My life is over." He had never thought that the demon-slaying conference that he had painstakingly organized would not only fail to avenge his great hatred, but would also end with his death. And Eldritch, who should have been cut into pieces, not only did not die, he would break out of his cocoon and become a butterfly. He would be reborn, smoothly transcending the tribulation, and soar into the sky. The heavens do not destroy Eldritch. Gasandoj sighed in his heart. Thinking of this, he closed his eyes and waited for death. "Snow Bear, stop for now." Yifan's voice came from behind the white-robed youth. The white-robed youth frowned and slowly turned his head to look at Yifan. When the 7 giant snow wolves heard Yifan's voice, they immediately stopped and looked at Yifan. Shwa. Yifan moved and appeared beside the white-robed youth in an instant. "Why does Benefactor want me to stop?" The white-clothed youth stood up and looked at Yifan with a puzzled expression. "You're letting him off too easily by killing him," Yifan said as he turned to look at Gasang Dorji. Gasandoj opened his eyes and looked at Yifan. In his opinion, Yifan would definitely let this white-clothed youth brutally torture him to death. "Benefactor, you mean?" the white-clothed youth asked Yifan. "Destroy his cultivation and let him go." Yifan turned around to look at the white-clothed youth and calmly said, "Let him go?" The white-clothed youth's voice was filled with surprise. He was not the only one who was surprised. When Gasandoj heard Yifan say that he would let him go, he could hardly believe his ears. "Even if you cut him into pieces, your father and your clansmen will never be able to come back to life." Yifan reached out and patted the white-robed youth's shoulder. "You're now a god in Tibet and you're enjoying the worship of the people. No matter how despicable and sinister Gasang Dorji is, he's still the abbot of this temple. As the saying goes, even if you don't respect the monk, you have to respect the Buddha. If you kill him, you'll have to pay for your sins sooner or later." The white-clothed youth frowned and listened quietly. "I'm sure you've heard about my past life. If it weren't for the fact that I've killed too many people, I would have had my own temple by now and enjoyed a place of incense. Why would I have to suffer such pain today?" Yifan then said to the white-robed youth, "Listen to my advice and let him go. His fate will definitely be worse than death." When Yifan said this, he felt ridiculous in his heart. Just now, he had cut Gasandoj into 8 pieces and destroyed his primordial spirit, but now he began to persuade others not to kill again. It was so ironic and ridiculous. But even so, what he said was not wrong at all. Now, Gasandoj's ugly face was known to everyone, and his deeds had been spread throughout Jianghu. He would definitely not be able to be the abbot of this temple, and would be driven out of Tibet. And from then on, no matter where he went, he would be reviled by people. From an eminent monk who was respected by everyone to a lowly person who was despised by everyone, it would be worse than death. Gasandoj's eyes were dull and his face was filled with sorrow. Yi Fan's words were like a steel knife stabbing into his heart. He was right. Even if he did not die this time, he would inevitably live in exile, living a life worse than death. The white-clothed youth frowned and looked at Gasandoj, who had lost his momentum, then looked up at Yi Fan and gently waved his hand to the giant wolves. The giant wolves slowly retreated. The wolf that was holding Gasandagi down also jumped to the side and let go of Gasandagi. Gasandoj slowly got up from the ground. Whoosh! Just as he straightened his body, the white-clothed youth's eyes turned cold, and he flicked his sleeve at him and waved it across the air. Whoosh! A few bright silver lights flew out of the white-clothed youth's sleeve and went straight to Gasandoj. Bang! 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 The silver lights instantly hit several major acupoints on Gasandoj's chest. Specks of silver light could be seen shining brilliantly. Puff! Gasandoj, who had just stood still, felt something sweet in his throat and spat out a mouthful of blood. At the same time, his body was sent flying backward by the power of the silver lights. Plop! Gasandoj fell heavily on the rocky ground dozens of feet away. At this time, his internal organs were damaged, his cultivation was destroyed, and his whole body was in pain. He was like a disabled person. He struggled to get up slowly from the ground, blood dripping from his mouth. His face was pale and he staggered. "I'll give you 3 days to get out of Tibet and never step into Tibet again. Otherwise, I'll beat you every time I see you. Get lost." The white-clothed youth scolded Gasandoj. "Get lost. Get lost. You're lucky. If you come to Tibet again in the future, I'll beat you to death." The angry Tibetans scolded Gasandoj. A few of them were extremely angry. They picked up the snow under their feet, clenched it into snowballs, and threw them at Gasandoj from afar. One of the snowballs smashed right into Gasandoj's head, knocking away the llama hat on his head. Gasandoj looked at the indignant Tibetans around him, then looked up at the magnificent temple in front of him. He closed his eyes and felt lost. Once upon a time, the believers who came to his temple to pray for blessings and worship Buddha were respectful to him and bowed to him. But now, these believers were extremely disgusted with him, and they kept scolding him. People didn't believe in karma, and karma had never let anyone go. His retribution had come. Thinking of this, Gasandoj slowly faced the gate of the temple and knelt on the ground. He piously bowed to the temple and confessed his sins. After kneeling 3 times and 9 times, he staggered to his feet and walked toward the gate of the execution field. Soon, he disappeared into the wind and snow. "Father, I've avenged you," the white-clothed youth said as he raised his head and looked up at the sky. 2 lines of hot tears burst out of his eyes. "It's all over," Yi Fan said lightly as he put his arm around the white-clothed youth's shoulder. A man in green with a sword on his back walked out of the 700 masters. He cupped his hands and asked Yi Fan, "Benefactor, what about these people?" As he asked, he turned his head to look at the 300 enemies who were hiding and trembling on the side of the execution field. At this time, the 300 half-human half-monster enemies were all trembling and curling up into a ball. They didn't even dare to breathe. The horrifying scene of Yi Fan killing the yellow-robed Taoist and dismantling Di Kuan had frightened them. Yi Fan slowly turned around and faced them. He frowned and thought of a way to deal with them. When the 300 enemies saw Yi Fan turn around, they immediately huddled together and didn't dare to look directly at Yi Fan. "Benefactor, do you want to kill them?" the green-clothed man asked Yi Fan. Yi Fan didn't say anything. He slowly raised his arm and bent his fingers into a claw facing the 300 masters. Buzz, the red light in Yi Fan's palm appeared again, and it was dazzling. More than 300 Cho family members hugged each other and wept. Yi Fan was going to kill them. Cui Ziwen frowned slightly and looked at Yi Fan. Whoosh! Yi Fan activated his spiritual power, and the red light claw suddenly tightened. Buzz, the 300 enemies instantly flashed with light, and there was a lot of light. Bang! 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 Following Yi Fan's move, hundreds of glowing pearls flew out from the bodies of the 300 Cho clan members, heading straight for Yi Fan's hand. The pearls were of different sizes and different colors, and they were all shining brightly. Inner cores. Lu Yuanshan was shocked. Yi Fan had absorbed all of their inner cores. He was right. These light pearls that were rushing towards Yi Fan were all the natal inner cores of the 300 Chiu clan members. Yi Fan didn't want to kill them, but he was afraid that they would do evil everywhere. So, after thinking about it, he decided to take their inner cores. Once they lost their inner cores, they would definitely die. However, when Yi Fan took their inner cores, he purposely separated a portion of his spiritual power and left it in their bodies to save their lives. Whoosh! More than 300 inner cores of various colors flew into Yi Fan's palm and merged into a dazzling 7-colored, 5-inch large ball of light. Whoosh! Once the inner cores were lost, the 300 enemies instantly reverted to their original forms. The huge spiders that were a few feet long immediately became the size of fingernails. The huge pythons that were several feet long also became small snakes that were a foot long. The huge centipedes that were 9 feet long also became the size of a little finger. All the monsters instantly became ordinary animals that couldn't be any more ordinary. Today, I'll let you off temporarily and give you a chance to enter Dao again. You're on your own now. Yi Fan, who was holding the 7-colored inner core, said to the enemies who had reverted to their original forms, "If I find out that you've committed crimes and harmed the people, I'll definitely punish you." As Yi Fan said that, he suddenly clenched his hand. Bang! The 5-inch 7-colored inner core was instantly crushed by Yi Fan, turning into 7-colored light fragments that fell to the ground. The 300 enemies who had reverted to their original forms immediately bowed to Yi Fan. The centipedes waved their long whiskers, the scorpions waved their sharp claws, the snakes arched their bodies and nodded at Yi Fan, and the rats sat up straight and clenched their fists, shaking them up and down. The 300 enemies each expressed their gratitude to Yi Fan for not killing them in their own ways. "You may leave." Yi Fan waved his sleeves. Whoosh! Chapter 642. Seeing that Yi Fan did not kill his 300 enemies, the smiling Cui Ziwen slowly nodded his head. Yi Fan's actions made him feel very gratified. For a treasured sword, it was important to have a sharp blade, but it was more important to have a good scabbard. The true meaning of a sword was not to kill, but to hide. When was a strong bow and crossbow at its most powerful? When an arrow was knocked on the bowstring, it would not be released. This was the case for weapons, and it was also the case for experts. Those who were good at killing were not experts, but killers. Only those who could kill and forgive could be considered expert. This was the so-called Bodhisattva's heart and Vajra's methods. It was not easy for Yi Fan, who had already entered the demonic path, to be able to achieve what he had today. When Yi Kong, Akatsuki, and the others saw this, the stone in their hearts fell to the ground. Yi Fan did not kill the innocent. Killing had become his second nature. He was still the same Yi Fan from before. It was just that his heart had been suppressed for too long, so he had gone berserk just now. Speaking of which, if it were them, they might not be able to do this. At this moment, Yi Fan's heart was surging with emotions. All sorts of feelings welled up in his heart, as if he had just had a dream. He slowly raised his head and looked at the spell flag on the flagpole that was fluttering in the wind. On the spell flag, the 2 words, "Exorcise Demons," made his heart surge with emotions. He reached out with one hand and sucked in the air toward the spell flag that was fluttering in the wind. Kacha! The spell flag with the 2 words, "Exorcise Demons," on it instantly left the spell flag and flew into Yi Fan's hand. Yi Fan unfolded the spell flag and looked at it, then folded it and put it away. Seeing that everything had been settled, the crowd and the sect masters on the execution ground began to disperse. "Everyone, please stay," Yi Fan said. His voice was very low, but it clearly entered everyone's ears. The spiritual power of the Phoenix Dance's 9th heaven was no joke. At this moment, Yi Fan could completely control his own voice. As long as he wanted, even a soft sentence could enter the ears of others. When the people who were about to leave heard Yi Fan's words, they immediately stopped in their tracks and turned around. "I'm sure you've all seen that I've joined the devil's path," Yi Fan said to the crowd calmly. "If you want to get rid of the devil, you can come and find me, but please don't harass my family and friends. Also, the original Yi Fan is dead, and you've all seen his corpse. From today onwards, I'll change my name to Yi Bufan, and I'll add the word no to my previous name. I won't use my previous name, so please keep that in mind." As Yi Fan spoke, he slowly turned around and walked towards Yi Kong and the others. Yi Fan's words were no different from a huge rock being thrown into a calm lake, stirring up countless ripples. "Knight Bufan, Eldritch Bufan." The expressions of all the experts present changed greatly in an instant, including Cui Ziwen and Tenmoni. "You can leave now," Yi Fan, who had his back to the crowd, said as he walked away. "Let's go." Within the crowd, Matsumoto Takeyoshi, who had a serious expression, spoke to Akichi Miyamoto and Sasaki, who were in disguise. As he spoke, he turned around and slowly walked away. The 2 nodded and followed Matsumoto Takeyoshi out of the execution field. Although Matsumoto Takeyoshi didn't get what he wanted in this devil-slaying conference, he truly understood Yi Fan's true strength. The king of the devil world, the power of the heavenly devil, transcended the heavenly tribulation and was reborn. The yellow-robed Taoist and the 8 yin-yang masters were just a pile of rotten meat in front of him. The 300 enemies with hundreds of years of cultivation had their inner cores taken away by Yi Fan with a light wave of his hand. What was even more frightening was that other than Pear Blossom Palace, the Devil World's Supreme Tenmoni, the Tsuaming Hall's head teacher Cui Ziwen, and the Purple Sun Temple's first disciple Ming Yu were all closely related to this Yi Fan. This didn't include the Tibetan wolf god and the 700-plus experts of unknown origins. Everything was out of his expectations, but at the same time, it was within his expectations. What surprised him was Yi Fan's heaven-defying strength. What was expected was that, after each tribulation, Yi Fan would be reborn from the ashes, and his cultivation would increase explosively. It seemed that all the plans had to be brought forward. Matsumoto Takeyoshi thought to himself with a serious expression. During the process of leaving, Akichi Miyamoto looked back at Yi Fan from time to time. The master and 2 servants soon disappeared into the mountains. "Remove all the gunpowder. We will return to the capital immediately," the crown prince said to the old eunuch beside him. "Yes," the old eunuch said and gave a meaningful glance to the Tibetans in disguise in the distance. The few Tibetans nodded their heads in agreement. Hearing the crown prince's words, Lu Yuanshan was shocked. His guess was correct. The crown prince had rushed here from afar to save Yi Fan. He had even buried gunpowder in the execution field in advance. "Your Highness, I will escort you back to the capital," Lu Yuanshan said to the crown prince. "Didn't you come here as the Maoshan sect leader? Why are you escorting me?" The crown prince said coldly to Lu Yuanshan. Lu Yuanshan had an awkward expression and was speechless. "Do what I asked you to do quickly. Don't make any mistakes." "Yes," Lu Yuanshan quickly replied. "Yes," the crown prince said and slowly left with the old eunuch. After the 700 experts and the wolf god carrying snow bid farewell to Yi Fan, they used their movement techniques to fly into the clouds and return home. They were all cultivators and did not have so many formalities. Father, you and Uncle Yi Chun go back to the ancestral home to recuperate. I will go back to see you when I have the chance, Yi Fan said to Yi Kong. Yi Kong looked at his beloved son and thought for a moment, then slowly nodded. He wanted to spend some time alone with Yi Fan and have a good chat with him. However, he and Yi Yun were both seriously injured and there were outsiders present. He could only give up on this idea for now. Uncle Yi Chun, I will leave my father to you, Yi Fan looked at Yi Chun and said. Don't worry, nephew, I will take good care of your father. Yi Chun patted Yi Fan's shoulder and replied. Granny, grandfather, Yi Fan turned around and asked Jinchan. Leave your grandfather to me, Jinchan said to Yi Fan with red eyes. I will bring him to Pear Blossom Palace and treat his injuries. Don't worry. Yi Yun used the burning skies diagram to save her. Jinchan was touched, but more than that, she felt regret and self-blame. Yi Yun had used the burning sky unique skill this time, so his lifespan had been reduced by at least 10 years. Golden Silkworm brought him back to the Pear Blossom Palace. Firstly, it wanted to take good care of him and make up for its guilt. Secondly, it wanted to ask its master, Tian Kanzi, to see if there was any other way to make up for Yi Yun's lifespan reduction. Tian Kanzi had already become a heaven wizard. His magic power was boundless and his cultivation was high. In addition, he created the burning skies diagram when he was young. Perhaps there was a way to save him. Chapter 643. Jinchan and his grandfather, Yi Yun, were both over 50 years old. After so many years of emotional entanglement, it was time for them to get along. Seniors, it's all thanks to you for your help this time. I'm eternally grateful, Yi Fan said as he came before Zhang Xiaoyang and Yu Xingchen. He placed the golden alms bowl aside and knelt before the two of them. If the two of them had not lent a helping hand just now, the situation would not have turned out this way. We're outsiders. It's normal for us to help others when they're in trouble. You don't have to be so courteous, Zhang Xiaoyang said as he reached out to help Yi Fan up. I will remember your great kindness in my heart and I will definitely repay you generously. Yi Fan bowed towards the two of them. You don't have to thank us, Yu Xingchen said to Yi Fan with a smile. We were just wondering if we'd saved the wrong person and were prepared to disperse our cultivation and ask for forgiveness in front of the Grandmaster. Now it seems that our lives are saved for the time being. Yi Fan was stunned, not knowing what he meant. You just have to do more good deeds in the future and kill less. That'll be repaying our kindness. Zhang Xiaoyang said to Yi Fan, I hope we didn't save the wrong person. You're on your own now, Zhang Xiaoyang said as he turned around and cupped his fists to everyone. Then, he tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and flew down the mountain at high speed. Yu Xingchen patted Yi Fan's shoulder and said goodbye to everyone. He used his movement technique and flew down the mountain. Looking at the two figures in the distance, Yi Fan suddenly understood what they meant. Just now, he had gone berserk, his evil aura soaring to the sky, and his killing intent blazing. That was why the two experts felt that they had saved the wrong person and regretted it. However, when they saw that he had spared the remaining 6 of the 8 Yin-Yang disciples, Gusang Doji, and the 300 enemies, they were relieved. After saying their goodbyes, Yi Chen brought Yi Kong and the 33 bronze men down the mountain, heading straight for the ancestral residence. Jinchan carried the unconscious Yi Yun onto the flying sedan and soared into the sky, flying into the clouds, heading straight for Pear Blossom Palace. Where is your blood demon token? Tenmoni, who was carrying Jade Moji, asked Yi Fan. When Yi Fan heard Tenmoni's question, he immediately took out the blood devil token. With a thought, Tenmoni began to activate the blood devil token in Yi Fan's hand. Buzz, following Tenmoni's activation, the blood demon token in Yi Fan's hand instantly glowed with a brilliant red light. Tenmoni gently pushed Jade Moji in his arms, and her figure slowly flew into the brilliance of the blood demon token. Yi Fan understood that the blood demon token was filled with demonic spirit. Tenmoni wanted Jade Moji to be nourished by the demonic spirits. In other words, Tenmoni had no intention of bringing Jade Moji back to the Devil Realm. "Brother Devil, is Moji all right?" Yi Fan asked Tenmoni with a frown as he kept the blood demon token. "Other than the lack of demonic spirits, she is fine. She will regain consciousness in 3 to 5 days." Tenmoni smiled at Yi Fan. At this moment, the sect leaders and the Tibetans began to disperse. The sect leaders used their movement techniques and soared into the sky. The Tibetans crowded down the mountain. The lamas of the temple were in a hurry to return to the temple to discuss the new abbot. In the crowd, there were 2 people in black cloaks and thick hats covering their faces. They turned around and prepared to leave with the Tibetan. "Since you're already here, why are you in such a hurry to leave?" Chui Ziwen smiled as he looked at the 2 of them and asked. Tenmoni smiled and did not say anything. The little Taoist boy pursed his lips and smiled as if he already knew. Akatsuki, Yifeshua, and Succubus were confused and did not know what was going on. Baihu Xiao Zhao looked at the 2 of them with a strange light in its eyes. The aura of the 2 people was very familiar to it, but it could not recall where it came from. Hearing Chui Ziwen's question, the 2 people in black cloaks stopped and slowly turned around. The 2 of them were wearing thick hats and their collars covered their faces. It was impossible to see their faces. "Succubus, take Yifeshua and Miss Yu to the foot of the mountain and guard it. Without my permission, no one is allowed to go up the mountain." Chui Ziwen said to Succubus with a smile. "Yes, sect leader." Succubus glanced at Yi Fan, then took Akatsuki, who was frowning, and Yifeshua, who was confused, down the mountain. In the process of leaving, Yifeshua and Akatsuki kept looking back at Yi Fan with reluctance. Yi Fan nodded lightly to the 2 of them, indicating that they did not need to worry. Although he did not know who the 2 people in front of him were and why Chui Ziwen stopped them, he could see that the 2 people in front of him had unimaginably high cultivation levels. Although the 2 of them had concealed most of their auras, from the faint auspicious aura that leaked out, their cultivation levels were not below his at all. They had already reached the immortal realm. However, he was sure that the 2 of them did not have any ill intentions towards him. The reason was very simple. The aura of the 2 of them was very peaceful, and there was no murderous intent. Where did these 2 people come from? Why did they come here? Why did Chui Ziwen stop them? Countless questions kept circling in Yi Fan's mind. Just as Yi Fan was thinking, the 2 of them slowly raised their heads. They turned their gazes towards Yi Fan and Xiao Zhao. Their eyes were clear and they were filled with energy. Whoosh! When Baihu Xiao Zhao saw the 2 of them, it jumped down from the stone platform and ran toward the 2 of them excitedly. It had recognized them. Chapter 644. Zing! The white fox, Xiao Zhao, dashed to one of them in a flash and leaped into his arms. "I didn't expect you to recognize me even though we haven't seen each other for 100 years. The person stroked Baihu and said, "A few days ago, I heard from old Nia that you're Baihu. I didn't believe it, but now. Sigh, Xiao Zhao, you've suffered." Woo! Baihu stuck out her soft tongue and licked the person's cheek. This person was none other than the Tower Master of the Myriad Immortal Tower, Bai Xing. "Old Nia, you're really something. There are so many elixirs in your pill furnace that they're almost moldy. Why didn't you give this girl one?" Bai Xing stroked Baihu's hair and turned to look at Nia Qing. "You're so heartless as to watch this girl degenerate into a fox. Old Bai, you've wronged me." Nia Qing reached out and took Baihu from Bai Xing's arms. He stroked her and said, "The last time I came back, I specially brought 100 herbs pill for this girl. But this damned girl is too stubborn and refused to take it. I can't force her to open her mouth and give it to her, right? Bai Sheng was stunned at first, then he shook his head with a bitter smile. This girl is too affectionate. Just let her be. Nie Qing patted the white fox's head and said with a smile. Bai Hu intimately touched Nie Qing's forehead with her head, looking very familiar. The simple conversation between the two of them caused Yi Fan, who was still full of doubt, to be stunned on the spot. He never thought that the two people in front of him were the best friends from his previous life who had been silently helping him, Nie Qing and Bai Sheng. He stood there, his heart pounding as he looked at the two of them. At this time, Nie Qing and Bai Sheng also looked up at Yi Fan with deep and clear eyes. After a long time, the two of them slowly walked towards Yi Fan. Yi Fan also took a step forward and quickly walked towards the two of them. Although the two of them hadn't met for a long time, they had been friends for a long time. Brother Nie. Brother Bai. Yi Fan's eyes were red as he walked up to the two of them. He held Nie Qing and Bai Sheng's hands tightly. Brother you've suffered. Tears welled up in Nie Qing's eyes. Her left hand gripped Yi Fan's hand tightly, while her right hand pressed on Yi Fan's shoulder. Old Xie, it's been more than 300 years. We three brothers finally meet again. Bai Sheng's eyes glistened with tears as he patted Yi Fan's shoulder and said. As the three brothers spoke, they hugged each other and laughed with tears in their eyes. Bai Hu jumped to the ground and looked at the three of them excitedly. The last time the three of them were together was several hundred years ago. Now that the three of them had reunited once again, it really made people sigh endlessly. The scene in front of her made Xiao Zhao absent-minded, as if time had returned to several hundred years ago. Old Xie, no matter what, you can't do anything foolish in this lifetime. Bai Sheng patted Yi Fan's shoulder and exclaimed loudly, if you continue to hide the fact that you have dispersed your cultivation and passed away from us, I, Lao Bai, will break off all relations with you. Last time, you didn't even say goodbye to us and got us drunk. Then, you fought the 6 immortals alone. What was the meaning of this? Don't you treat us as brothers anymore? Nie Qing shook Yi Fan's shoulder and asked loudly with tears in her eyes. Before Eldritch fought the 6 immortals, he specially invited the two of them to drink together and used the 100 flowers drunk, which was full of after effects, to get them drunk. Then, he sealed the cave entrance with a barrier and rushed to the outskirts of Chang, alone to fight the 6 immortals. After the two of them sobered up and found that Eldritch had sealed the cave entrance with a barrier, they felt that something was wrong. When Evil Moon's waning moon blade broke through the enchantment at the entrance of the cave at high speed, the two of them immediately had an ominous premonition. This waning moon blade had been Eldritch's divine weapon for a long time and had always been close to Eldritch. Now, it flew to the two of them and cried out in grief. Without a doubt, Eldritch must have encountered big trouble. Otherwise, Waning Moon wouldn't have let out such a sad cry. Thinking of this, the two of them immediately let Waning Moon lead the way and followed the Waning Moon blade to the outskirts of Chang'an. However, before the two of them and the blade reached the outskirts of Chang'an, an earth-shaking explosion came from the distance, followed by a blood-red light that covered half the sky. With this explosive sound, Evil Moon's overbearing and tyrannical spiritual aura instantly disappeared without a trace. Seeing this, the two of them burst into tears and were in so much pain that they wished they were dead. Eldritch had scattered his cultivation and self-detonated, leaving the mortal world, thinking of the tragic scene of losing their best friend. Nie Qing and Bai Sheng closed their eyes and let their tears fall. Hearing the two of them, Yi Fan's face was covered in tears and he slowly shook his head. He was choked with sobs and couldn't say a word. This guy. Seeing the touching scene in front of him, the little Taoist boy wiped his tears and smiled. Cui Ziwen and Tenmoni looked at each other and smiled, but didn't say anything. The three of them hugged each other and cried for half an hour before stopping. They had known each other for nearly 1,000 years, and the depth of their friendship was far beyond what ordinary people could imagine. Brother Nye, Brother Bai, come, let me introduce you to a few people. Yi Fan wiped his tears with his sleeve and hugged Nye Qing and Bai Xing to Cui Ziwen and Tenmoni. This is Tsuaming Hall's big brother Cui, and this is the Demon Realm's Supreme Master Tian Mo. Yi Fan began to introduce them to Nye Qing and Bai Xing. Old Xie, you don't need to introduce us, we've met before. Bai Xing pulled off the thick hat on his head and smiled at Yi Fan. His face was delicate and handsome, his lips were red, his teeth were white, and he was extremely elegant. His pair of starry eyes were overflowing with light, and his spiritual energy was flowing. Old Bai is right, we've not only met before, we've also fought before. Nye Qing also took off his hat and patted the dust on it while smiling at Yi Fan. Nye Qing had a dignified appearance, handsome appearance, teeth like jade, hair like a flowing spring, eyebrows like swords, and eyes like stars. You've met before? And fought before? Yi Fan was shocked by the two's words, and his face was filled with disbelief. Brother Yi, there are many things you don't know, Cui Ziwen said with a smile as he looked at the dumbfounded Yi Fan. Master Cui's cultivation is so high that I've never seen it before, Bai Xing said to Cui Ziwen with a smile. Tower Master Bai's cultivation is so powerful that it's an eye-opener for me, Cui Ziwen said to Bai Xing with a smile. It was obvious that the two of them had fought before. Purple Sun Temple's brilliant disciple Mingyu, your immortal arts are superb, and your sword skills are unparalleled. No wonder you're one of the three masters of the immortal sword. Nye Qing looked at the little Taoist boy with a smile and said with a smile. Hall Master Nye is too kind, the little Taoist boy said to Nye Qing with a smile. Hall Master Nye's art of stars is ever-changing and powerful. I'm not as good as you. It was obvious that the two of them had fought before. Yi Fan was completely shocked. He couldn't imagine how grand the battle between the four of them would be, or how earth-shattering it would be. What's going on? Yi Fan asked with a dumbfounded expression. Of everyone present, it seemed that he was the only one who was in the dark. Do you remember that I told that yellow-robed Taoist that I was here to take care of this place? Cui Ziwen asked Yi Fan with a smile. Yi Fan looked at Cui Ziwen with a frown and nodded slowly. Cui Ziwen had indeed said that, but he didn't know what it meant. I don't mind telling you the truth. There are far more experts participating in this demon-slaying conference than the ones you've seen. Cui Ziwen said with a smile. Those who should be here, and those who shouldn't be here, are all here. This is an unprecedented lineup. Yi Fan had a face of confusion, not understanding what was going on. Do you know why Nye Qing and Bai Xing are here? Cui Ziwen asked Yi Fan with a smile. Yi Fan looked at Nye Qing and Bai Xing and shook his head. Hall Master Nye, Manor Master Bai, you too should tell him. Cui Ziwen looked at Nye Qing and Bai Xing and said with a smile. Brother Nye, Brother Bai, what's going on? Yi Fan turned to look at the two of them and asked. Actually, the two of us shouldn't be here. Nye Qing smiled and said, but Xie Tian suddenly brought the 9 demons' 10 guards to the execution field today. The two of us were worried about Brother Yu's safety, so we came here in case something happened. Nye Qing didn't say this, but once she said it, Yi Fan's eyes opened wide in shock. His pupils contracted and he was stunned on the spot. The 9 demons' 10 guards were here. Xie Tian was also here. With so many top experts here, he actually didn't notice them. The 9 demons' 10 guards all have a cultivation of 1,000 years, so you should be clear on how strong they are. Bai Xing said to Yi Fan. As for Xie Tian, he has a cultivation of several tens of thousands of years and his strength is unfathomable. Under the protection of his 10,000-year-old evil spirit, the 9 demons' 10 guards turned into normal people and hid their auras, hiding in the crowd. You were busy passing the heavenly tribulation and taking revenge, so it's normal that you didn't notice them. Bai Xing's words made Yi Fan's heart fill with a trace of coldness. He knew that Xie Tian's strength couldn't be underestimated, but he never would have thought that this fellow would have a cultivation of several tens of thousands of years. What kind of strength was this? Now do you understand what I meant by guarding the execution field? Cui Ziwen said with a smile. The old monster, Nieqing, Bai Xing, Jinshan, and Ming Yu have all gathered here. It's not just to strengthen your momentum, it's also to prevent Xie Tian from bringing the 9 demons 10 guards to take your life. It's not just us, your Yi family's demonic blade Yi Ming is also here, but he was hiding in the air the entire time. Tenmoni said to Yi Fan, there's also Yagyu Ryu Jijie, who fought with you before. He's also here, but he's mixed in the crowd and hasn't shown himself. Yi Ming is also here. Long Jijie is also here. Yi Fan was shocked. Crate Myrtle Star is also here today, and has placed a large amount of gunpowder in the execution field, preparing to rob the execution field. The little Taoist boy said with a smile, if you don't believe me, you can dig 3 feet into the ground and see if I'm lying to you. Oh, that's right, Matsumoto Takeyoshi is also here. Yi Fan's eyes stared straight and his mind buzzed. He never thought that there would be so many peak characters at the demon-killing conference. Cui Ziwen, Yi Ming, Tenmoni, Nieqing, Bai Xing, Ming Yu, Jinshan, 9 demons 10 guards, evil god Xie Tian, Matsumoto Takeyoshi. Just a casual move from these people was enough to shake the world. Xie Tian must have seen that he had smoothly passed the tribulation, learned the supreme secret technique Phoenix dances 9 heavens, and had Cui Ziwen, Tenmoni, Nieqing, Bai Xing, Long Jijie, and the other legendary experts present. Adding in the 700 experts who came to repay his kindness and the wolf god carrying snow, he didn't act rashly. Chapter 645. Brother Yu, it's rare for the 3 of you to get together, so I won't join in the fun. Tenmoni said to Yi Fan. Before I came, I promised the demon venerable that I would go to the demon realm to drink. Now that it's almost time, I can't break my promise. You guys continue to catch up, I'll leave first. If there's anything else, we can talk about it after you return to the demon palace. As Tenmoni spoke, he nodded slightly to Cui Ziwen, Ming Yu, Nieqing, and Bai Xing. At the same time, he activated the demon spirit. Whoosh! Before Yi Fan could say anything, Tenmoni's figure instantly disappeared into thin air. The old devil has left, so I should also take my leave. Cui Ziwen smiled at Yi Fan. The 3 of you haven't seen each other for hundreds of years, so it's time for you to get together. Brother Cui, you're also leaving? Yi Fan turned to Cui Ziwen and asked. I'm not as free as the old devil. There are still a lot of things waiting for me in the Tsuaming Hall. Cui Ziwen patted Yi Fan's shoulder and said, Brother Yi, take care of yourself. I'll be leaving first. Cui Ziwen nodded to Nieqing, Bai Xing, and the little Taoist boy. Then, he instantly turned into a dazzling red light and flew into the clouds, leaving a long trail behind him. They've all left, so it would be rude of me to stay here any longer. The little Taoist boy said to Yi Fan with a smile. Now that you're fine, I have to hurry back to the Xiang temple. If I'm late, Master will punish me by making me copy the Tao Te Ching again. Yi Fan came to the little Taoist boy, squatted down, and asked, Ming Yu, is Senior Qing Chenzi well? Alas, Master is getting old. The little Taoist boy shook his head and sighed. Old? Yi Fan asked with a frown. The little Taoist boy raised his eyebrows and glanced at Yi Fan as he asked with a mischievous smile, Half of your hair has already turned white. Isn't that still old? It's all my fault. Yi Fan heard the little Taoist boy's words and immediately said with a guilty expression, If it weren't for me, Senior wouldn't have revealed the secrets of heaven and lost his immortal position. Alas, this is God's will. The little Taoist boy lowered his head and sighed. Last time, when he saw that half of his master Qing Chenzi's hair had turned white, the Taoist boy secretly cried for several days. He didn't say anything, but his heart was as clear as a mirror. Qingqinzi had already lost his immortal position and his lifespan had decreased drastically. He must have revealed the heavenly secrets to Yi Fan. He didn't even need to guess. His master must have told Yi Fan the secret of the 9 cauldrons. Otherwise, he wouldn't have received such a heavenly punishment. When you go back and see Senior Qingqinzi, send my regards to him. Tell him that I've let him down. Yi Fan pressed his hands on the little Taoist boy's shoulders and said with red eyes. Qingqinzi didn't tell him that he had become a demon so that he could walk on the right path and learn from his lesson. Now that he was the ruler of the demon world and had the power of the heavenly demon, he naturally felt guilty towards Qingqinzi. Don't tell me about this. When you go to the Purple Sun Temple, you should tell Master personally. The little Taoist boy said to Yi Fan with a smile. Yi Fan smiled and slowly nodded. Before I go, I have to hug Xiao Zhao again. As the little Taoist boy said this, he walked in front of Baihu with a smile. He reached out his chubby little hands and hugged Baihu. Baihu intimately rubbed her head against the little Taoist boy's face and used her fluffy foxtail to stroke the little Taoist boy's neck, making the little Taoist boy laugh loudly. Xiao Zhao, be good and follow this fellow. When you go back to the Purple Sun Temple, I'll make something good for you. Also, take good care of yourself. Don't starve yourself and remember to eat more. The little Taoist boy moved his head close to Baihu's ear and whispered. Baihu in his arms looked up at the little Taoist boy with a pair of clear eyes and nodded her head like a chick pecking at rice. Ever since the two of them met in the Purple Sun Temple, they had a very good relationship. It was not an exaggeration to say that they were best friends. Okay, then I'll go. The little Taoist boy smiled and patted Baihu's head and carried her over to Yi Fan. Don't starve her and make her thin. If she loses 1 or 2 grams, I'll hold you responsible. The little Taoist boy said to Yi Fan with a smile. Don't worry, she won't starve. Yi Fan bent over to take Baihu and said with a smile. Okay, let's go. The little Taoist boy said as he bowed to Nie Qing and Bai Sheng. Then, he used his movement skill and a golden light shot up into the sky. A large, auspicious clouds instantly formed and whizzed in the direction of the Purple Sun Temple. At this time, there was only Yi Fan, Nie Qing, Bai Sheng, and Yi Fan's body left in the execution field. Old Xie, the 2 of us can't stay here for long. We have to rush back to the East Ocean continent. Bai Sheng said to Yi Fan. You have to leave too? Yi Fan said anxiously. Xie Tian is too powerful. If we don't rush back, we don't know what he will do next. Nie Qing patted Yi Fan's shoulder and said, You can peacefully search for your 9 cauldrons in the Great Ming Dynasty. The 2 of us will keep an eye on Xie Tian. But before we leave, the 2 of us will take you to a place. Go to a place? Yi Fan asks back, Where? You'll know when you get there. Bai Sheng said with a smile. But Hong Ji and Fei Xue are still waiting for me at the foot of the mountain. I have to settle them down first, Yi Fan said. Akatsuki and Yi Fei Xue were waiting for him at the foot of the mountain. He couldn't leave them here. Don't worry. That place is not far from here. It'll be quick. Nie Qing said with a smile, Take your body and follow us. Whoosh, Nie Qing flicked her sleeve and instantly turned into a green light that flew into the sky. Whoosh, Bai Sheng followed closely behind and turned into a white stream that soared into the sky. Yi Fan frowned. He didn't know what the 2 of them were up to. He looked at his original body lying on the rocky ground and stretched out his right hand. Whoosh, the body instantly turned into a yellow light and flew into Yi Fan's sleeve. As for the golden alms bowl, Yi Fan didn't take it away and left it where it was. It belonged to the temple and he couldn't take it for himself. After he put away his physical body, he picked up the white fox. Then, with a thought, he activated his spiritual energy. Whoosh, a bright white light rose from the ground and soared into the sky. The white light was as fast as thunder and purple lightning. It rushed to the front of Nie Qing and Bai Sheng in an instant. Nie Qing and Bai Sheng were stunned at first, then they looked at each other and smiled. The third level of the Xian Tian Secret Essentials was indeed worthy of its reputation. As the saying went, one could see a whole leopard through a tube. Yi Fan didn't expect that his movement technique would reach such a level. He was actually able to reach the target first even though he had started later. He slowly withdrew his spiritual power and slowed down. He flew side by side with Nie Qing and Bai Sheng. "Where are you taking me?" Yi Fan asked the two of them above the clouds. "Just ahead. We'll be there soon," Bai Sheng said with a smile. Nie Qing smiled mysteriously and didn't say anything. After a while, the three of them landed on the top of a snowy mountain that was almost deserted. The snowy mountain was majestic and towered into the clouds. The mountain was covered with thick ice and snow. The air on the top of the mountain was thin. The cold wind blew and the snowflakes swirled in the air. This snowy mountain was very steep. Not to mention ordinary people, even experts with high cultivation would have to expend a lot of effort to reach the peak. "Where is this?" Yi Fan asked the two of them in confusion. "Why did you bring me here? Do you see that snow hill?" Nie Qing, who was looking ahead, turned around and asked Yi Fan with a smile. Yi Fan glanced at Nie Qing and then looked ahead. More than 100 feet in front of him, a huge snow hill came into view. The snow hill was 30 to 40 feet high and was piled up with snow. "This is..." Yi Fan frowned and asked the two of them. "This is a person's grave," Bai Sheng said to Yi Fan with a smile. "Grave? Whose grave?" Yi Fan was getting more and more confused. He didn't know who would build a grave in such a place. "See for yourself," Nie Qing said and waved at the snow hill. Whoosh, a strong wind blew and went straight to the snow hill. Whoosh, the snow on the snow hill was blown away by the strong wind and flew in all directions. After Feishue disappeared, a circular ice grave about 10 feet in size appeared in front of Yi Fan. It was called an ice grave because there was a 5 feet tall ice tablet in front of it. The ice tablet was made of a whole block of ice. It was pure white and crystal clear. Under the sunlight, it emitted a 7-colored glow. When he saw the words carved on the ice tablet, Yi Fan's mind buzzed. Baihu Xiaozhao, who was in Yi Fan's arms, jumped out of his arms and looked at the words on the ice tablet. On the ice tablet there were 4 ancient characters. The handwriting was wild and unruly but elegant. Eldritch's grave. On the bottom right corner of the ice tablet, there was a small line of words that made Yi Fan's heart jump and he was shocked. It said, "Eldritch Yi Bufan set up his own grave here." This was Eldritch's grave. And this grave was set up by Eldritch himself. How could it be? Yi Fan stared blankly and his mind was in a mess. If Eldritch had destroyed himself, why would he set up his own grave? Could it be that this ice tablet was set up by his ghost? 300 years ago, you invited the two of us to drink in your Lingyun cave. After deliberately getting us drunk, you used a spell to make Xiao Zhao fall asleep. Then, you set up a barrier at the entrance of the cave and rushed to the outskirts of Chang, and alone to fight the 6 immortals, Nie Qing said. At that time, you already had the intention to kill the immortals and were ready to leave the mortal world. So, you sent away your spiritual weapon, Waning Moon, to prevent it from being implicated. Waning Moon couldn't bear to see you in danger, so it returned to the Lingyun cave and broke through the barrier to wake us up. Only then did we know that you were in danger. At this point, Nie Qing's voice choked and she stopped talking. By the time we rushed to the outskirts of Chang'an, you had already passed away. Bai Sheng's eyes were red as he continued. We searched for your remains in the outskirts of Chang and to collect your corpse. Unfortunately, your spiritual power was tyrannical in your previous life. When your cultivation dissipated, your body turned to ashes, and it was difficult to find even an inch of bone. The two of us could only return to the Lingyun cave to find a robe you liked to wear and build a cenotaph for you. However, in the stone kitchen where you stored your clothes, we found this ice tablet. Phew! Bai Xing took a deep breath and then let out a long sigh, holding back the tears in his eyes. After listening to the two of them, Yi Fan completely understood. Back then, he had already predicted everything, so he had prepared for the future. He had even carved the tombstone with his own hands. He wondered what kind of feelings he had when he was carving this ice steel. Yi Fan thought to himself, "Do you know what's buried in this ice tomb?" Nie Qing turned to look at Yi Fan with red eyes and asked, "Isn't it one of my clothes?" Yi Fan asked. Nie Qing smiled and shook her head. "In addition, there's one more thing," Nie Qing said to Yi Fan. "One more thing? What is it?" Yi Fan asked again. Waning Moonblade, Bai Xing spat out 3 words. Just as Bai Xing's voice fell, an azure light suddenly erupted from the crystal-clear ice tomb, and the brilliance was dazzling. Rumble. Chapter 646. Hua, the ice shards on the ground slowly flew off the ground and floated into the air. The robes of the 3 people fluttered in the wind due to the violent waves of qi, making flapping sounds. What a tyrannical spirit energy! Yi Fan's eyes widened as he stared at the green light that was bursting out from the icy grave. He exclaimed in his heart. Within the gale, Nie Qing and Bai Xing's cloaks fluttered as they smiled. They both knew that waning moon was about to be born. Just as Yi Fan was shocked by the strange scene in front of him, a dazzling green pillar of light shot out from the frozen grave and pierced the clouds. The green pillar of light was 9 feet thick. It was magnificent and majestic, like a fierce dragon coming out of a tower. The clouds in the sky were instantly pierced through by the green pillar of light. The clouds quickly spread out, forming a huge hole in the clouds. The layers of clouds were like ripples. Nie Qing and Bai Xing raised their heads and looked at the sky. Yi Fan's eyes followed the green pillar of light as he looked at the clouds without blinking. A green light suddenly flashed in the clouds. Shua, the brilliant and resplendent starlight, drew a beautiful arc in the sky. Then, with a whoosh, it pierced through the clouds and headed straight for the ground. The brilliance, the tyrannical spirit energy, and the ferocity of its speed were all things that Yi Fan had never seen before. Before the light arrived, the strong wind arrived first. The huge spiritual pressure coupled with the astonishing speed caused the countless ice shards that were floating on the ground to be pressed to the ground by the shockwave. Because the 3 of them had reached the immortal realm, they were naturally fine. The dazzling light fell from the sky faster and faster. The sound of the air being torn also became sharper and sharper. Yi Fan stood with his hands behind his back and looked at the sky. He directly faced the dazzling light falling from the sky at high speed. When the dazzling light was less than a foot away from Yi Fan's head, it suddenly stopped. The strong wind that was stirred up by the light instantly created a circular wave of air. Feishua's ice shards were scattered everywhere. The starlight floating above Yi Fan's head gradually dissipated, and the resplendent light around him began to turn gentle. At the same time, the starlight slowly descended and stopped in front of Yi Fan. When Yi Fan saw the crescent-shaped blade in the starlight, several images flashed through his mind. Eldritch, do you really want to go against the heavenly court? Do you know what the consequences are? In his mind, an old immortal holding a coiling dragon staff stood in the clouds and shouted at a bare-chested young man floating in the air. The young man wore a carefree scarf on his head. His face was like a beautiful jade, his hair was as black as ink, and his face was as handsome as jade. This person's eyes were blood-red, and his strong and fair muscles were exposed. The spirit qi around him protected his body, and the red light was dazzling. What was even stranger was that a red crescent moon pattern appeared on his back, emitting a blood-red glow. This person is my previous life, Eldritch Yi Bufan. Yi Fan was shocked. While he was still in shock, the scene in his mind changed once again. At this time, the crescent moon blade appeared in Eldritch's palm out of thin air, and the blade was surrounded by a cold green light. "Waning moon," Eldritch said to the blade floating in his palm, "I'm afraid that today is the day we part ways. After I die, you can find a new master." Buzz, the crescent moon blade trembled and left Eldritch's palm, flying around Eldritch. "Listen to me, don't mess around," Eldritch said to the crescent moon blade. "I have already calculated that today is the day of my great tribulation, and it is unavoidable. After I kill the immortals, the heavens will not tolerate me. You have followed me for many years, and your spirituality has already appeared, so you don't have to die with me. I have already told Nieching and Bai Xing to take care of you, so you can leave now." Buzz, the crescent moon swayed left and right and kept chirping. "Are you not going to listen to me?" Eldritch asked. The crescent moon kept crying, as if it was crying. "Go!" Eldritch sternly shouted. The crescent moon blade flew in front of Eldritch, and used the blade to gently stroke Eldritch's cheek. Eldritch closed his eyes and did not say a word. Buzz, the crescent moon blade circled 3 times to the right of Eldritch, and then with a mournful cry, the green light around it shone brightly, and a long tail of light broke through the air. The scene in his mind ended here. At this time, Yi Fan's face was covered in tears. These scenes were the scenes of him fighting the 6 immortals of the Heaven Realm 300 years ago. And the thing that triggered the remnant memories of his previous life was the crescent moon blade in front of him, the crescent moon blade. Buzz, the waning moon, which was emitting a bluish-green light, began to revolve around Yi Fan. It was sensing Yi Fan's aura. When it circled behind Yi Fan, it instantly sensed a familiar aura coming from the crescent moon tattoo on Yi Fan's back. This person was Eldritch's reincarnation. Buzz, the waning moon blade, instantly shone brightly and flew in front of Yi Fan with a schwa sound. The smooth blade gently caressed Yi Fan's cheek, just like when they parted 300 years ago. Yi Fan's eyes were red, and he had a smile on his face. He stretched out his hand, and tried to use his mind to make the crescent moon blade fly into his palm. Who knew that just as his mind moved, the crescent moon blade would instantly sense Yi Fan's mind. Schwa! The crescent moon flew into Yi Fan's palm, and it floated in the air, shining brightly. What a good crescent moon blade that could read one's mind! Yi Fan was shocked in his heart. As he thought, he began to carefully examine the divine weapon that he had carried around with him in his previous life. This blade was 1 foot long, 3 inches wide, and the body of the blade was like a crescent moon. Green light flowed around it, and a propitious aura surrounded it. At first glance, it looked like the crescent moon that hung high in the sky in Yikong. Looking at the crescent moon blade in his palm, Yi Fan's eyes shone brightly. "Ever since we built your cenotaph here, the crescent moon flew into your tomb and refused to come out," Nieching said to Yi Fan. "If you hadn't come here today, who knows how long it would have stayed here. This crescent moon has the same temperament as you in the past, stubborn and unruly. The 2 of us have tried to persuade it for many days, but it refused to come out no matter what. It has guarded it for 300 years. It really is a divine weapon that is loyal and affectionate." Bai Xing looked at the man and the blade and couldn't help but sigh. After Yi Fan heard this, tears flashed in his eyes. "Crescent moon, I made you wait for me for so many years. It must have been hard on you," Yi Fan said to the crescent moon floating in his palm. Wang, the crescent moon blade flashed with a green light as if it understood Yi Fan's words. Yi Fan solemnly said to the crescent moon, "From today onwards, you and I will never leave each other. We will live and die together. We will never be separated again." Wang, hearing Yi Fan's words, the crescent moon blade let out an excited cry. At the same time, the green light exploded. Schwa! It flew away from Yi Fan's palm with a whoosh and started to play happily in the air. It excitedly flew to Nieching's side and shook the blade. Then, it ran to Bai Xing and spun around. Then, it flew to Bai Hu and buzzed. It was as happy as a child. Bai Xing pointed at the crescent moon and turned to look at Nie Qing with a smile. Look at how happy it is. It doesn't look like a divine weapon at all. Nie Qing smiled and said, It has been guarding old Xie's grave for over 300 years. It must have been bored to death. It's normal for it to play around now. Brother Nie, Brother Bai, there's something I don't understand. I don't know if I should ask. Yi Fan suddenly remembered what he had heard on the execution field and asked the two of them. We're all brothers. There's no need to ask. Nie Qing smiled at Yi Fan and said, As long as it's not a secret from the heavens, you can ask anything. Why did the two of you fight against Master Cui and Mingyu? Yi Fan asked the question that had been in his heart for a long time. Nie Qing and Bai Xing glanced at each other and smiled. Just ask. If it's a secret from the heavens, don't force it. Yi Fan added when he saw the mysterious expressions on the two's faces. Qing Qinzi had lost his immortal position because he revealed a secret from the heavens. He didn't want his two best friends from his previous life to suffer the same fate. Actually, it's nothing much. Bai Xing looked at Yi Fan and said, Cui Ziwen's cultivation is heaven-defying and he is mysterious and unfathomable. I was worried that he would harm you, so I decided to meet him and exchange a few blows with him. Although Bai Xing spoke casually, Yi Fan's heart skipped a beat when he heard it. One of them was the house master of the 10,000 Immortals Tower, while the other was the renowned head of Tsuaming Hall. If the two of them were to exchange blows, the result would be unimaginable. I thought that Cui Ziwen must be an arrogant and domineering person, but I didn't expect his moves to be so profound and exquisite. There was no trace of evil in them at all. He's also straightforward and straightforward. He's crazy but not arrogant. He's arrogant but not impatient. He's indeed a rare top-notch expert with a shocking cultivation base. I can see that this person helped you because he was on the same wavelength as you. He didn't ask for anything else. Bai Xing explained to Yi Fan. What about you, Brother Nie? Yi Fan turned around and asked Nie Qing, Why did you fight with Mingyu? He's the disciple of Purple Sun Temple's Qing Qinzi. He wouldn't harm me, right? He's the disciple of Purple Sun Temple's Qing Qinzi, but he has another identity. Nie Qing looked at Yi Fan and said calmly, Another identity? What identity? Yi Fan asked Nie Qing. He was an immortal in his past life, an immortal who fought with you before. Nie Qing said to Yi Fan, As for who this person is, I can't tell you. Just like you said, this is a heavenly secret that can't be revealed. We fought with each other in our past lives? Yi Fan was shocked when he heard Nie Qing's words. Nie Qing slowly nodded. Let's stop here for today. It's getting late, we should return to the East Ocean continent. Bai Xing said to Nie Qing. Nie Qing replied. Brother Nie, Brother Bai, you're leaving now? Yi Fan asked anxiously. Nie Qing nodded. Old Xie, you stay in the Great Ming Dynasty and continue searching for the Divine Cauldron. The two of us will keep an eye on Xie Tian in the East Ocean continent and buy you some time. Bai Xing said to Yi Fan, But you have to remember, although your cultivation is close to the immortal realm, you have to know that there's always someone stronger. There will be many great tribulations waiting for you in the future, so you have to be prepared. Yi Fan nodded with a serious expression on his face. Before I leave, I'll give you this 100 herbs pill. Nie Qing took out a 3-inch pill box from her bosom and handed it to Yi Fan. She then said, When I saved you the last time, I fed this pill to Xiao Zhao so that she could return to her human form. However, this girl was too stubborn and refused to eat it no matter what. This girl had fallen into a fox's body because of you, so it would be more appropriate for you to return her to her human form. Yi Fan took the pill and turned to look at Baihu beside him. Baihu subconsciously took a step back. Brother Yu, Xiao Zhao, we're leaving. Take care. Nie Qing said to Yi Fan and Baihu. Old Xie, Xiao Zhao, we'll meet again. We'll wait for your good news in the East Ocean continent, Bai Xing said with a smile. As the two of them spoke, clouds appeared under their feet and they slowly flew up. Brother Nye, Brother Bai, take care. We'll meet again, Yi Fan said to the two of them in the air. Woo! Bai Hu looked up at the two of them and softly called out, unwilling to part. Chapter 647. After sending off Nye Qing and Bai Xing, Yi Fan turned around and looked at the shattered ice tomb. Since this was the tomb of his previous life, why not bury his physical body here? As Yi Fan thought to himself, he pointed his arm at the frozen grave and gave it a thought. A yellow light shot out from Yi Fan's sleeve. Within the yellow beam of light, Yi Fan's deformed body slowly flew out and landed in the ice graveyard. Looking at the shattered body in the ice tomb, Yi Fan's face was solemn and his heart was filled with a myriad of emotions. In his previous life, he had carved an ice tablet for himself. But in this life, he had to bury his own body with his own hands. This state of mind was very strange and strange. It was unprecedented. In this world, the only person who could have this kind of feeling was probably himself. Yi Fan thought to himself as he slowly walked to the ice tomb. He squatted down and looked at his other self in the tomb. The body in the tomb had its tendons broken and both of its arms were missing. Its face was pale and its body was stiff. It stared at Yi Fan with a pair of black bloody holes. Yi Fan slowly stood up and pointed his right palm at his body. At the same time, he activated the ice snake's inner core in his chi-si. Countless sparkling ice crystals shot out from Yi Fan's palms and poured down from his palms. In the blink of an eye, a huge crystal-like ice coffin filled with cold air was formed. The ice coffin was 9 feet long and 5 feet wide. It was crystal clear and dazzling. Under the sunlight, it emitted a 7-colored brilliance. Inside the ice coffin, Yi Fan's body lay quietly. Yi Fan stopped the cold air and waved his sleeve at the ice tomb. The countless shards of ice that were scattered on the ground gathered above the ice coffin and reformed into a 3 feet tall giant tomb. This time, the ice tomb was no longer a cenotaph. Yi Fan thought to himself as he lifted the collapsed ice tombstone from the ground. He reached out and gently touched the tombstone. Shwa, the words on the tombstone disappeared instantly. Yi Fan stretched out his right index finger and used his finger's strength to write on the steel-like ice tombstone. Creak, creak, creak as Yi Fan's fingertips moved across the icy tombstone, sparkling ice shards slowly fell to the ground. After a while, 2 lines of unruly but beautiful handwriting appeared on the tombstone. Eldritch Yi Bufan buried himself here. The one who set up the monument was Yi Bufan. Boom! After he finished writing the inscription, Yi Fan placed the ice tablet heavily in front of the frozen grave. Buzz, the divine weapon Waning Moon, which was floating on Yi Fan's shoulder, flew to the front of the tombstone with a shwa sound. It circled around the ice tombstone 3 times before returning to Yi Fan's shoulder, emitting a crisp sound and flashing brilliance. The previous Yi Fan is already dead. From today onwards, I will be Yi Bufan. Yi Fan looked at the ice tombstone in front of him and calmly said. In the past, he only wanted to live an ordinary life with his beloved wife, Fujiwara no Chiko. In the end, the heavens gave him a ruthless slap, causing him to lose his beloved wife and enter the demonic path, leading a wandering life. Since this was the case, he would defy the heavens and change his fate. As the saying goes, one's fate is controlled by oneself, not by the heavens. In the past, he was just like his previous name, ordinary, unremarkable, cowardly, indecisive, and in the end, he was neither a human nor a ghost. Now, he changed his name to Yi Bufan to remind himself that since he was born with Bufan's life, then he had to be himself and do what Bufan did. After cultivating the phoenix dances of the 9 heavens, the evil aura leaking from Yi Fan's soul began to affect his temperament. Xiao Zhao, Waning Moon, let's go, Yi Fan calmly said and slowly turned around. Zing! Baihu jumped onto Yi Fan's shoulder. Wang! The waning moon blade floating above Yi Fan's shoulder let out a crisp sound and drew a beautiful arc in the air. With a shwa sound, it flew into the crescent moon pattern on Yi Fan's back. The waning moon entered the blood moon. The expressionless Yi Fan's mind moved and his body instantly turned into a white light. He rose from the ground and soared into the sky. A dazzling streak of starlight shot straight towards the flying snow peak. At the foot of Feishua Peak, Akatsuki, dressed in red, and Yi Feishua, dressed in pink, were anxiously waiting there. They constantly looked towards Feishua Peak. Succubus, dressed in a black robe, stood to the side. Her beautiful eyes were slightly furrowed and she didn't say a word. At this moment, they still thought that Yi Fan was still on Feishua Peak. Akatsuki stood in the cold wind and snow. Her beautiful eyes stared intently at Feishua Peak. She wanted nothing more than to fly up there and find Yi Fan. When she came down from Feishua Peak and passed by the two men in black robes, she keenly sensed that these two people's cultivation levels were extremely high. She had never seen them before. She was worried about Yi Fan's safety, so her heart was constantly on tenterhooks. Succubus wasn't worried about these two people at all. Although their cultivation levels were high, they were surrounded by auspicious energy and didn't possess any killing intent. Cui Ziwen had sent the three of them away because he didn't want them to know the identities of these two people. At this moment, she didn't know that Cui Ziwen had already returned to Tsuaming Hall. Unlike the two people who had a cultivation level, Yi Feishua's hands and feet were numb from the cold. Her nose was running, her cheeks were red, and her long eyelashes were covered with frost. She was like an ice beauty. She was from the Central Plains and was a woman. In addition, she had no cultivation level. She couldn't stand the harsh weather in the Tibetan area. At this moment, she put her hands by her mouth and breathed in hot air. Her feet were hurriedly stomping on the snow, eagerly waiting for Yi Fan to appear. Hongji, Feishua, Succubus. High up in the sky, Yi Fan's clear voice rang out. It was Yi Fan. When the three of them heard this, they were overjoyed and looked up. In the distant sky, a white star vaguely appeared in the clouds. Brother Yi. Yi Feishua was as happy as a child, jumping up and down joyfully while placing her hands that were red from the cold by her mouth, shouting loudly at the starlight in the sky. Whoosh! The star suddenly accelerated and instantly broke through the clouds. In the blink of an eye, it rushed above the three of them. Whoosh! A white lightning bolt descended from the sky and landed in front of the three of them. Brother Yi. When she saw Yi Fan, who was wearing a beautiful black robe and had a jade-like face, Yi Feishua immediately rushed up and hugged Yi Fan's neck. Tears flowed down her face. Yi Fan's rebirth made her so happy that she cried. Baihu, who was on Yi Fan's shoulder, lightly jumped onto the snow and sat there. She looked at Yi Fan with a pair of clear eyes. Akatsuki and Succubus turned their heads to the side. Yi Feishua's bold action made the two of them blush slightly. Yi Fan smiled and allowed Yi Feishua to hug him. In his heart, Yi Feishua was his family, a very close family member. She was like his own little sister. He had already told Yi Feishua about this last time. Okay, silly girl. If you continue hugging me like this, brother Yi won't be able to breathe. Yi Fan patted Yi Feishua's back and said with a smile. Yi Feishua smiled through her tears and let go of Yi Fan's neck. Look at how cold you are. You're about to turn into a snowman, Yi Fan said with a smile as he reached out to scratch Yi Feishua's nose. The moment he touched Yi Feishua's nose, Yi Fan used his mind to extract a trace of heat from the fire snake's dragon orb and injected it into Yi Feishua's body through his fingers. Yi Feishua felt a warm current travel from Yi Fan's fingertips to her entire body. She was still shivering from the cold just a moment ago, but she instantly felt the cold disappear. Even the frost on her eyelashes had disappeared. She knew that Yi Fan was helping her expel the cold. This made her feel very sweet. Hongji, Succubus. Yi Fan said as he walked over to the two of them and looked at them. The two of them raised their heads to look at Yi Fan, then lowered their heads with their faces flushed red. Before Yi Fan cultivated the phoenix dances in the ninth heaven, the two of them had expressed their feelings to Yi Fan. One of them was willing to die for love, while the other was willing to be with him in the next life. At that time, they thought that it would be the last time they saw Yi Fan. They never thought that Yi Fan would be reborn from the ashes. This layer of window paper had been pierced through. Originally, the two of them had a lot of things to say to Yi Fan, but now that Yi Fan was standing in front of them, they couldn't say a single word. Hong-ji, succubus, I thank you. Yi Fan said to the two of them with red eyes as he recalled what the two of them had said to him on the execution ground. He was very touched. Akatsuki and Succubus raised their heads to look at Yi Fan, not knowing what to say. The atmosphere became a little awkward. Right. That's right, where's Master Chui? Why didn't he go down the mountain with you? Succubus, whose face was red all the way to her neck, changed the topic and asked Yi Fan. Master Chui has already left. Yi Fan looked at Succubus and said. Left? Succubus was in disbelief. What surprised her wasn't Chui Ziwen's movement skills, but that Chui Ziwen didn't bring her back to Tsuaming Hall. Obviously, Chui Ziwen gave her and Yi Fan some time. I have to hurry back to Tsuaming Hall, or else the head priest will scold me, Succubus said to Yi Fan as she thought of this. She wanted to find an excuse to leave. Bufan-kun, I also have to go back to East Sea. I was in a hurry this time, and Mr. Matsumoto didn't know. Akatsuki also wanted to find an excuse to leave, and said with a red face, I'll go first. As the two spoke, they turned around and prepared to leave. When I was about to die, both of you were worried about me and treated me with love. Yi Fan looked at their backs and said calmly, Now that I've survived and have a new life, both of you are in a hurry to leave me. What, are you unhappy that I didn't die? Yi Fan's words made Akatsuki and Succubus, who were about to leave, immediately stop in their tracks. Bufan-kun, I didn't mean that. Akatsuki turned around and anxiously said to Yi Fan. I didn't. Succubus also turned around and said to Yi Fan with a red face. If that's the case, then why are you in such a hurry to leave? Yi Fan looked at the two and asked, since Master Chui didn't take Succubus with him, he naturally has his reasons. As for you, Hong-ji, there's no need to rush back, because Matsumoto Takeyoshi was at the spiritual assembly just now. He saw your every move clearly. What? Matsumoto Takeyoshi was also at the spiritual assembly? Akatsuki was shocked by Yi Fan's words. Yi Fan nodded. The two fell silent. The three of you have treated me with sincerity, and I can't be ungrateful, Yi Fan said to the three of them. Find a restaurant at the foot of the mountain and wait for me. I'll be there soon, and then I'll bring you to my cave, the Lingyun Cave. As Yi Fan said this, he bent down and picked up Baihu. With a whoosh, he turned into a bright star and went straight into the clouds, flying at high speed in the direction of Mount Everest. He wanted to go there to find the whereabouts of the sacred cauldron. Chapter 648. As for Yi Fan, he transformed into a dazzling ray of light and flew over Mount Everest at lightning speed. In less than 10 minutes, he had arrived at the top of Mount Everest. It was already noon, and the 10,000-year-old ice and snow covering Mount Everest shone dazzlingly under the sunlight. Yi Fan stopped and hovered in the air. He shaded his eyes with his hand and looked down. After a while, a smile appeared on his face. Halfway up Mount Everest, a young man wearing a Xiaoyao headband and a black robe was standing with his hands behind his back. He looked up with a smile. The young man had a dignified appearance, a tall and straight posture, and was extremely handsome and elegant. He was shrouded in auspicious light and filled with auspicious air. This person was none other than the mountain god of Mount Everest who had fed him a few days ago. Whoosh! With a smile on his face, Yi Fan transformed into a white ray of light and swooped down. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, Yi Fan appeared in front of the young man. The phoenix is reborn from the ashes. The young man looked at Yi Fan and said with a smile, "Since ancient times, no one else has been able to break out of the cocoon and become a butterfly when one's life was hanging by a thread. Besides you, Eldritch, no one else has been able to turn the rotten into the miraculous. My benefactor, please accept my bow," Yi Fan said, clasping his hands together and kneeling on one knee in front of the young man. What are you doing?" The young man was stunned at first, then immediately reached out to help Yi Fan up. "I didn't help you break out of the execution ground. Why are you calling me your benefactor? Get up quickly." "Senior, I am eternally grateful for your kindness," Yi Fan said solemnly while kneeling. As the saying goes, a drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring. When he was at the end of his rope, the mountain god of Mount Everest came to the execution ground and fed him food and wine, and advised him to be patient. It could be said that he had helped him in his hour of need. If it wasn't for this person's help, he definitely wouldn't have today's achievement. "It's just a bowl of white rice. How can I accept such a grand gesture from you?" The young man exerted his strength and helped Yi Fan up. He smiled and said, "Although I'm the mountain god of Mount Everest, I'm not an old woman. You keep calling me senior and benefactor, as if I'm an old man." Yi Fan smiled when he heard that. The Mount Everest mountain god really had the same temperament and personality as him. Even the way they spoke was very similar. "My secular surname is Lang and my name is Feng. Just call me Brother Feng, and don't call me senior this and senior that." The young man waved his hand at Yi Fan and smiled. "Brother Feng," Yi Fan said sincerely. "That's more like it." The young man nodded and smiled at Yi Fan. "Brother Feng, to be honest, the reason I came to Tibet is to—" Yi Fan was about to tell Lang Feng his intentions. "To find the divine cauldron, right?" The young man interrupted Yi Fan and asked with a smile. Yi Fan was stunned at first, then slowly nodded his head. Lang Feng's words did not surprise him. This person was the god of heaven, and it was normal for him to know his intentions. "Ha ha, Brother Bufan, you came to the right place today." Lang Feng patted Yi Fan's shoulder and said with a smile. Yi Fan was overjoyed when he heard this. From Lang Feng's words, he could tell that the divine cauldron was on Mount Everest. "Brother Feng, you mean?" Yi Fan's eyes lit up as he asked Lang Feng. Lang Feng nodded his head slowly. "That's great," Yi Fan blurted out excitedly. However, Yi Fan's smile soon froze. He suddenly thought of a problem. This place was known as the King of Mountains, Mount Everest. The mountain towered into the clouds and was covered in snow all year round. However, the divine cauldron was protected by a powerful enchantment. Of course, with his current cultivation, this was not a problem at all. Whether it was the power of the heavenly demon or the power of the nine heavens phoenix, he could easily break the enchantment and obtain the patterns on the cauldron. However, there was one thing that gave him a headache. When he used his spiritual energy to break the enchantment of the divine cauldron, Mount Everest would definitely shake and collapse. At that time, even if he obtained the patterns of the divine cauldron, the rocks and ice on Mount Everest would definitely roll down. At the foot of Mount Everest, there was a large residential area and many devout Tibetans who worshipped around the mountain. Once Mount Everest shook and collapsed, the iron-like and steel-like icebergs and rocks would instantly smash towards them like rolling wood and thunder stones. The ice on Mount Everest weighed at least 1,000 pounds. Coupled with the height of the mountain, the force of the falling ice could reach up to 10,000 pounds. The hundreds and thousands of Tibetans on the ground along with the residential area would instantly be covered by the ice and snow, and they would die on the spot. Not only that, once the mountain was destroyed, mountain god Lang Feng would definitely be punished by the heavens for failing to protect the mountain. Yi Fan could not disregard the lives of the people, destroy the sacred mountain, and implicate his friends for the sake of the inscription of the divine cauldron. What should he do? Yi Fan fell into deep thought. In the past, he was worried that he could not find the divine cauldron. After he found the divine cauldron, he was worried that he did not have the power to break the enchantment. Now that he had found the divine cauldron and had the power, he was worried that he would not hurt the innocent. Mountain god Lang Feng saw that Yi Fan was deep in thought and immediately asked. Yi Fan told him the truth. Ha ha ha! After hearing Yi Fan's concerns, Lang Feng looked up and laughed loudly. Brother Feng, why are you laughing? Yi Fan saw that Lang Feng was laughing for no reason and asked suspiciously. Brother Bufan's temper is still the same as in my previous life. Arrogant and unruly, but kind-hearted. Before you even see the divine cauldron, you are already worried about the safety of the people and the Mount Everest. You are more suitable for the position of mountain god than me, ha 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 ha. Lang Feng laughed heartily. I'm already so anxious, and Brother Feng is still in the mood to laugh? Yi Fan asked Lang Feng with a wry smile. Brother Bufan, you worry too much. Lang Feng patted Yi Fan's shoulder and said, Today's divine cauldron can be obtained by Brother Bufan without any effort. You obtained it without any effort? Yi Fan's face was filled with shock and disbelief. The enchantment of the divine cauldron was so strong that it could only be broken by the power of the immortal demons. How could it be obtained without any effort? Was this Lang Feng joking with him? Yi Fan thought and looked suspiciously at Lang Feng. What? You don't believe me? Lang Feng saw Yi Fan's suspicious face and laughed. How about this, let's make a bet. Today, if you can obtain the divine cauldron's pattern without any effort, you will give me a jar of the aged 100 flowers drunk that you personally brewed. If you use the power of the immortal demons to obtain the pattern, I will lose, and I will become an old man for 3 years, allowing you to make fun of me. How about that? Are you serious? Yi Fan asked Lang Feng. I am a mountain god. How can I not keep my word? Lang Feng, who had a face full of smiles, replied Yi Fan with confidence. All right, I promise you, Brother Feng, Yi Fan said straightforwardly. Today, if I can really obtain the divine cauldron's pattern without any effort, not to mention 1 jar of 100 flowers wine, even if it's 3 jars, I'm willing. Good. Lang Feng clapped and laughed. Brother Bufan is indeed straightforward. Can you tell me now, Brother Feng? Yi Fan asked Lang Feng. Of course, Lang Feng said with a smile. Brother Bufan, you can take out the white bell on you and take a look. You will know at once. White bell. Yi Fan's heart skipped a beat, as if he understood something. He hurriedly took out the exquisite wooden box that Qing Chenzi had given him and casually opened it. Buzz, as soon as the lid of the wooden box was opened, a bright white light shot up into the sky from the box. Ring, inside the wooden box, the exquisite white bell emitted a bright white light and vibrated continuously, causing the bell to ring loudly. The divine cauldron on Mount Everest is one of the 9 cauldrons that you are guarding, the Yongzhou cauldron, Lang Feng said to Yi Fan with a smile. Yongzhou cauldron. It was the Yongzhou cauldron that he was guarding. Yi Fan instantly understood what Lang Feng had said. Qing Chenzi had once told him that the bell-keeper could freely enter and exit the divine cauldron's boundary that he was guarding. No wonder Lang Feng said that he could effortlessly obtain the patterns on the divine cauldron. So that was the reason. He was so muddle-headed that he had forgotten about that. How is it, Brother Bufan, I didn't lie to you, did I? Lang Feng asked Yi Fan with a smile. 3 jars of 100 flowers drunk, I will definitely send them to Brother Feng, Yi Fan said to Lang Feng with a smile. Buzz, at that moment, the white light beam that shot up into the sky from the white bell suddenly changed its direction and turned sharply downwards, winding towards the back of Mount Everest. The white bell is guiding you, go quickly, Lang Feng said to Yi Fan when he saw the situation. Brother Feng, I will go now, see you again, Yi Fan said to Lang Feng. On the day that I succeed, Don't forget to bring the 100 flowers drunk here to drink with me, Lang Feng said with a smile. Brother Feng, don't worry, I will bring it. I am leaving. As Yi Fan said that, he tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and his body instantly soared into the sky. Once again, he turned into a dazzling starlight and followed closely behind the white light beam, breaking through the sky. Looking at the starlight gradually disappearing into the distance, mountain god Lang Feng smiled and disappeared into thin air. Swoosh! Yi Fan, who had turned into a dazzling starlight, followed closely behind the meandering white light beam. Soon, they reached a precipice behind Mount Everest. Swoosh! The white light beam shot straight into the precipice. When Yi Fan saw this, he did not slow down at all as he followed closely behind. Since the white bell was guiding him to fly towards the precipice, he would follow the white light. Buzz! The moment Yi Fan touched the icy precipice, the precipice instantly became illusory, as if it did not exist. Swoosh! In the blink of an eye, Yi Fan had rushed into the precipice. It was a huge ice cave. Within the ice cave, the entire room was filled with white light. The white light was dazzling and extremely gentle, and it was extremely comfortable to look at. Within the white light, a huge bronze cauldron stood there quietly. It was surrounded by a bright light, and it was surrounded by an auspicious aura. No one dared to look at it directly. It was the divine cauldron. It was the Yongzhou cauldron that he was guarding. Yi Fan thought to himself as he landed on the ground. Buzz! The white bell in Yi Fan's hand vibrated loudly and slowly flew up to the divine cauldron. It slowly circled around the divine cauldron. Buzz! As the white bell continued to circle around the divine cauldron, the dazzling light that was surrounding the divine cauldron began to soften and finally disappeared, revealing a simple and mysterious pattern. The pattern of the divine cauldron. Seeing this, Yi Fan immediately rushed to the front of the divine cauldron. Buzz! The white bell that was circling around the divine cauldron made a crisp sound and flew into the wooden box in Yi Fan's hand. Yi Fan, who was overjoyed, kept the white bell in his arms and then started to activate the demon spirit. Whoosh! Chapter 649. After obtaining the godly cauldron's inscription, Yi Fan withdrew the red light in his eyes and flew out of the ice cave. He stepped on the auspicious clouds and quickly flew in the direction of Feishue's Peak. Below Feishue's Peak was a large residential area. If he turned into a star, he would attract too much attention. At this time, using the cloud riding technique was the most suitable choice. In less than the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Yi Fan arrived above Feishue's Peak. At this time, his spiritual energy was much stronger than before. If he wanted to distinguish Yi Feishue's trio's aura in the residential area, it would be as easy as flipping his hand. After using his senses to investigate the residential area below, Yi Fan felt the aura of the trio. He urged his spiritual energy and used his movement technique. With a whoosh, he disappeared from the clouds and appeared in a remote corner above the ground. He held Baihu in his arms, then took out the white jade mask and put it on his face. He slowly walked out from the corner and walked towards an inn not far away. Yi Feishue's trio's aura came from this inn. After Yi Fan entered the inn, he directly followed the aura of the trio to a room on the second floor. He was about to raise his hand to knock on the door when he suddenly heard the trio talking inside. Big Sister Hongji, where did Brother Yi go? Why hasn't he returned yet? Is he okay? Should we go out and look for him? Yi Feishue asked Akatsuki. Her voice sounded very anxious. I don't know where he went. Akatsuki's ethereal voice sounded. It should be something urgent. Let's just wait for him here. Little Sister Feishue, don't worry. Your brother Ye's cultivation is much stronger than before. He will definitely be fine. Maybe he's already on his way back. Succubus's voice sounded. If we go out and look for him now, he will definitely be worried when he returns and finds out that we're not here. Let's just wait. After Yi Feishue heard this, she didn't say anything else. After Yi Fan, who was standing outside the door, heard the three's conversation, he closed his eyes and shook his head. Yi Feishue's personality was feisty and dared to love and hate. Akatsuki was steady and calm like water. Succubus was meticulous and considerate. The three of them were all amazing women and were deeply in love with him. He didn't know how much he had accumulated in his previous life to have such good fortune. Knock knock, Yez's hand. Who's there? Succubus's voice came from inside the guest room. Brother Yez back. Yi Feishue heard Akatsuki's words and immediately ran to the door, impatiently reaching out to open it. I'm back, Yi Fan said as he took off the white jade mask on his face. He reached out to scratch Yi Feishue's nose and walked in with a smile. Yi Feishue pursed her lips and smiled, then closed the door. You're back. Succubus stood up from his chair and said gently to Yi Fan. Yi Fan nodded. Are you done? Akatsuki also stood up and asked Yi Fan. I'm done. Yi Fan replied. Brother Yi, when are we going to the Lingyun cave? Yi Feishue came in front of Yi Fan and reached out to pick up Baihu from Yi Fan's shoulders. She stroked Baihu's head and smiled as she asked Yi Fan. Yi Feishue was overjoyed when she heard Yi Fan say he was going to take them to the Lingyun cave. Ever since Yi Fan had promised to bring her to the cave for a tour, she had been thinking about it. Now that Yi Fan took the initiative to bring it up, how could she not be overjoyed? You guys pack up. We're leaving now. Yi Fan said to the three of them. You've just recovered and haven't eaten for many days. You should rest and eat something before leaving. Akatsuki said to Yi Fan with concern. Hongji is right. You've been tormented for the past few days and haven't eaten a single drop of water. You should eat something before leaving. Succubus also said to Yi Fan, Wait here, I'll get you something to eat. Succubus said and turned to go downstairs. No need, I'm not hungry. Yi Fan reached out to block Succubus. Succubus looked up at Yi Fan. After meeting Yi Fan's gaze, she immediately lowered her head with a red face. You must be hungry now. Let's go, I'll take you to my cave. I'll personally cook and entertain you to express my gratitude. Yi Fan looked at the three of them and said, That's great. That's great. Yi Feishue cheered. After 10 minutes, the four of them appeared in the sky. Above the clouds, Yi Fan stood on the auspicious clouds and carried Baihu on his shoulder. Spiritual energy enveloped his body and formed a rainbow ball of light that was several feet in size. The rainbow ball of light shone brightly and was surrounded by auspicious clouds. Like a bolt of lightning, it sped toward the east. Within the ball of light, Yi Feishue, Akatsuki, and Succubus were shocked to see the light and shadow receding under their feet. They were so shocked that they couldn't utter a single word. At this moment, Yi Fan's movement technique was so fast that it completely exceeded their imaginations. In particular, Yi Feishue's eyes were wide open and her face was full of disbelief. It was as if she was in a dream. She held onto the inner wall of the rainbow ball of light with both hands and stared dumbfoundedly at the mountains and rivers flashing by under her feet. She almost couldn't believe that everything in front of her was real. The rainbow ball of light was extremely fast. It whizzed past the clouds and left a long rainbow trail behind it. After 15 minutes, the four of them arrived at the boundary of Fengming Mountain. We're almost there. It's right in front of us, Yi Fan said with a smile. Succubus and Yi Feishue immediately looked out through the ball of light. When the green Fengming Mountain came into view, Succubus, who was dressed in a black robe, exclaimed, What a spiritual and dangerous mountain! The Fengming Mountain in front of them rose steeply from the ground and pierced through the clouds. It was so tall that it could be said that it was an otherworldly celestial mountain. The mountain was verdant, steep, and tall. The top of the mountain was extremely wide and smooth. In the middle of the wide ground at the top of the mountain there was a pavilion. Outside the pavilion, A few tall pine trees surrounded the pavilion like a canopy. It looked quiet and elegant, just like a celestial realm. Although Succubus was one of the 4 guardians of the Tsuaming Hall and had seen all kinds of grand scenes, she was still deeply shocked by the scene in front of her. Where is it? Where is it? Euphasua opened her eyes wide and looked outside, but she couldn't see anything. She was a mortal with no cultivation at all, and this Feng Ming mountain had a barrier, so ordinary people couldn't see it at all. Yi Fan smiled and patted Euphasua's head. Euphasua was about to ask Yi Fan why she couldn't see, when she suddenly felt a surge of spiritual energy surging down from the top of her head, straight into her body. Just as she was puzzled, the panoramic view of Feng Ming Mountain appeared in front of her out of thin air. Yi Fan's pat just now seemed ordinary, but in reality, he had channeled a wave of spiritual energy into Euphasua's body and opened up all the veins in her eyes. Naturally, she could see the Feng Ming Mountain within the barrier. Wow! When Euphasua saw the fairy-like Feng Ming Mountain in front of her, she immediately cried out in alarm like a child. Since she was young, this was the first time she had seen such a tall and straight immortal mountain that was surrounded by spiritual energy. Akatsuki, who was under the veil, had a calm expression, but her heart was in turmoil. This was not the first time she had been here. Last time, Yi Fan had brought her here and personally cooked a table of dishes for her. It was also because of those dishes that the 2 of them parted ways. Brother Yiyu, is your cave on this mountain? Euphasua, who was inside the ball of spiritual energy, turned her head and asked Yi Fan in disbelief. Yi Fan nodded with a smile on his face. Do you and sister-in-law Chico usually live here? Euphasua asked again. Yes. Yi Fan said with a smile. Euphasua pursed her lips and silently turned her head, looking enviously at the Feng Ming Mountain that was getting closer and closer. It could be said that she was extremely envious of the relationship between Yi Fan and Fujiwara no Chico. If Yi Fan could treat her like how he treated Fujiwara no Chico, even if it was only for a day, she would be willing to die. Silly girl. Seeing Euphasua's envious expression, Yi Fan reached out his hand and patted Euphasua's head with a smile. Yi Fan was well aware of Euphasua's feelings for him. What is the name of this mountain? Succubus turned his head and asked Yi Fan. Feng Ming Mountain. Yi Fan replied. Feng Ming Mountain, Lingyun Cave. Succubus carefully savored these words and muttered to himself, good name, good place. As they got closer and closer to the Feng Ming Mountain, Yi Fan slowly withdrew his spiritual power and reduced his speed. At the same time, he gradually withdrew the spiritual energy ball and slowly descended to the mountainside. When they were about 10 feet away from the stone wall of the Feng Ming Mountain, Yi Fan flicked his sleeves. Rumble, following the rumbling of the stone wall, a stone door slowly opened. Euphasua was dumbstruck when she saw this. This stone door blended perfectly with the mountain rock. From the outside, it was impossible to see any trace of it. Let's go in, Yi Fan said as he controlled the rainbow light ball to fly into the cave. After entering the cave, he withdrew the spiritual energy ball and slowly lowered the 3 of them to the ground. When she saw the grand and exquisite scenery of the Lingyun Cave, Euphasua's mouth opened into an O shape. The scale of the Lingyun Cave was so grand, its aura was astonishing, and the scenery was so beautiful that it made her feel as if she was in a fairyland. She covered her mouth with her hand and widened her eyes. She stood rooted to the ground, dumbstruck. She was not the only one who was shocked. When she saw everything in front of her, Succubus's beautiful eyes also widened and she was dumbstruck. This cave was too big, it was simply too big. Looking at this place, there were pavilions, terraces and pavilions, gurgling streams, clusters of flowers, exotic flowers and rare plants, trees, pine trees, bamboo trees and small bridges with flowing water. On top of the cave, huge luminous pearls were shining brightly, dazzling the eyes. Inside the cave, the stone tables and chairs were simple and elegant, setting off each other beautifully. It could really be said that this was a paradise, a paradise. Sit anywhere you want, I'll go prepare food for you. Yi Fan smiled at the three of them. Oh right, there's a bath upstairs, you can go take a bath. In the stone kitchen in the bathroom, there are Chico's clothes, you can wear them. When the three of them were on the execution field, they had leaned on Yi Fan's shoulder in pain and were soaked in the blood of the deformed Yi Fan. When the three of them heard this, their faces turned red. It felt strange to take a bath in this place. Take your time. By the time you're done, my food will be almost ready. Xiao Zhao, take them to the bathroom, Yi Fan said to Baihu, who was on his shoulder. Baihu jumped down. Chapter 650. After an hour, Yi Fan had prepared 8 dishes in the kitchen, 4 meat and 4 vegetable dishes. 4 meat dishes: braised duck breast, braised river shrimp, donpa pig knuckle, stewed sea bass. 4 vegetable dishes: stir-fried vegetables, sweet taro with sugar, stir-fried bamboo shoots, and deep-fried eggplant. Every dish was one of Yi Fan's best dishes that he had meticulously cooked. In addition, Yi Fan had also prepared fruits, peaches, dried fruits, candied fruits, sunflower seeds, and fragrant tea. After placing all these fragrant delicacies on the stone table, Yi Fan returned to the wine cellar and took out a large jar of aged 100-blossom intoxication, placing it on the table. They had just returned from Tibet and had suffered a lot from the cold. Drinking some good wine could help them warm up. Wow, it smells so good. Yi Fan was placing the bowls and chopsticks when Yi Feishua's voice came from upstairs. Yi Fan smiled. Yi Feishua was from a medical family and had been in contact with all kinds of medicinal herbs all year round. Her nose was more sensitive than anyone else's. As Yi Fan was thinking, Yi Feishua's figure appeared at the top of the stairs. At this moment, Yi Feishua had a dainty face, bright eyes, red lips, neck as white as snow, a pink long dress that swayed with every step she took. Her waist-length black hair was soft and supple, and the fragrance of her hair permeated the air. She was beautiful and moving, but not lacking in elegance. Damned girl, your nose is really sensitive, Yi Fan said to Yi Feishua as he placed the bowls and chopsticks. Why aren't you coming over to help? Oh, okay. Yi Feishua answered crisply as she bounced down the stairs. She arrived in front of Yi Fan like a gust of wind, and helped Yi Fan place the wine cup. Brother Yi, did you make all these dishes? Yi Feishua swiftly distributed the stone cups and wine utensils. She raised her head and looked at Yi Fan with a pair of clear eyes. If I didn't do it, could it be that you did it? Yi Fan smiled as he tapped Yi Feishua's forehead. Wow. There's even wine! Yi Feishua exclaimed as she looked at the jar of 100 flowers drunk on the stone table. This is the 100-flower intoxication that I personally brewed in my previous life. Try it later. It will dispel the cold and warm your body, Yi Fan said to Yi Feishua with a smile. 100 flowers drunk? You brewed this in your past life? Yi Feishua asked in surprise. Yes, Yi Fan replied. What a pity! Yi Feishua looked at the simple and exquisite wine jar on the table, shook her head and sighed. My father doesn't allow me to drink outside. Are you so obedient to your father? Yi Fan asked with a smile. Yi Feishua raised her head and looked at Yi Fan. If I'm not wrong, you secretly came to Tibet this time without telling your father, right? Yi Fan looked at Yi Feishua and asked with a smile. No, no. Yi Feishua's eyes flickered as she avoided Yi Fan's gaze. Oh. Is that so? Yi Fan smiled. Well, if I have the chance, I'll ask Mr. Yi if he knows about your trip to Tibet. If you dare to tell my father, I won't talk to you anymore, Yi Feishua replied anxiously. Don't worry, I won't tell your father, Yi Fan said with a smile. Drink as much as you want later. If you get drunk, just sleep here. Your father won't know. As Yi Fan spoke, he winked at Yi Feishua. You're the ancestor of our Yi family. Your seniority is much higher than my father's. Naturally, whatever you say is right. My father can't control you, hee. Yefaishua pursed her lips and laughed. Yifan was completely speechless. The two of them were laughing and fooling around when Succubus's figure appeared on the stairs. Her face was like a peach petal, her eyes were like autumn waves, her eyebrows were like ink, her teeth were like jade, her beautiful eyes were like the stars and the moon, and her long hair was like a waterfall. She was wearing a black jade dress. With her curvaceous figure and fairy-like face, she was like a dragon lady from the upper realm. What are you guys talking about? Why are you so happy? Succubus asked with a smile as he walked down the stairs. Sister Succubus, you came at the right time. Brother Yi bullied me, Yefaishua said to Succubus with a smile. How is that possible? Succubus walked up to the two of them and said with a smile, Your brother Yi dotes on you so much. How could he bully you? Yifan smiled and nodded. Sister Succubus, you're speaking up for him too, Yefaishua said with a red face. I'm not speaking up for him. I'm just telling the truth, Succubus said with a smile. Yefaishua's face turned even redder. Where's Hongji? Why isn't she coming down? Yifan changed the topic and asked Succubus. She's done a long time ago. She's helping Xiao Zhao now, Succubus said. Yifan nodded. I didn't expect you to be so good at cooking. Succubus looked at the table of dishes in front of him and said with a surprised tone. Chico is Japanese, so she's not used to other people's cooking. It took me a long time to learn how to cook these dishes, Yifan said. As soon as he said that, Succubus and Yefaishua fell silent. They were envious of Yifan's love for Fujiwara no Chico. Whoosh! At this moment, Baihu Xiao Zhao quickly jumped down the stairs and landed on the stone table like a white shadow. She was drooling from the aroma of the dishes on the table. At this moment, her fur was shiny and white like brocade. There was a crimson mark between her eyebrows that was as red as blood. She looked extremely lively. I'm sorry to keep everyone waiting. Following that, an ethereal voice came from the stairs. Akatsuki, who was dressed in a snow-white outfit, slowly came down the stairs. Yu Hongji's eyebrows were like emerald feathers, her skin was like ice, and her bones were like jade. Her long black hair was smooth and glossy. Her pair of beautiful eyes were like limpid ripples. Under the contrast of her snow-white dress, she really looked like Chang-Yi leaving her palace, a fairy from the 9 heavens descending to the mortal world. She could be said to be second to none in the Jasper Lake, unparalleled in the Violet Palace. What was even more unbelievable was that Akatsuki had already removed her veil. Yefaishua was stunned. Succubus was stunned. Yifan was even more stunned. He felt like he was in a dream. How was this Akatsuki? This was clearly Fujiwara no Chico. Fujiwara no Chico's outfit looked like it was custom-made on her. I was late because I had to bathe Xiao Zhao. My apologies. Akatsuki placed her hands on her knees and bowed to everyone. Sister Hongji, you're so beautiful. You're as beautiful as sister-in-law Chico, Yefaishua said as she looked at the stunning Akatsuki. How is this possible? Succubus blurted out in disbelief. She had seen Chico Fujiwara in the Pear Blossom Palace, and she looked exactly the same as Yuhiro Hongji in front of her. Whoosh! Baihu flew into Akatsuki's arms. Among the 4 of them, apart from Yifan, Akatsuki was the one who treated it the best. In East Sea, Akatsuki made delicious pastries for it every day. When the ancestral home fell off the cliff, Akatsuki risked her life to protect it. Yu Hongji had become its close friend, and they were inseparable. Both of you are Bufan Kuen's confidants. It would be rude of me to wear a veil. Akatsuki lowered her head as she hugged Baihu. Don't just stand there. Sit down and try my cooking. Yifan recovered from his shock and gestured for the 3 of them to sit down. The 3 of them smiled and took their seat. The stone table was square. Yefaishua and Succubus sat to the left and right of Yifan. Akatsuki sat across from Yifan. Baihu Xiao Zhao was lying on the table next to Yi Fan. Yi Fan picked up a wine jar from the table, broke the yellow wine seal, and began to pour wine for the three of them. In the face of danger, one's true nature is revealed. When my life was hanging by a thread, you all trusted each other with your friendship and relied on each other in life and death. This is truly the fortune of my life, the blessing of 3 lifetimes. Yi Fan put down the wine jar and held a cup with both hands. He said to the three of them, I'm not good with words, so I can't say anything touching. This cup of wine is to express my sincerity. Thank you, everyone. As Yi Fan spoke, his eyes turned red. As he spoke, he tilted his head back and downed a large cup of 100 flowers drunk. The 3 confidants pursed their lips, but didn't say anything. Next, I want to toast the 3 of you alone. As Yi Fan spoke, he grabbed the wine jar and filled his cup. After filling his cup, he put down the wine jar, raised his cup, and looked at Akatsuki. Hongji, Yi Fan said to Akatsuki, last time, in order to save my life, you disregarded your own life, sacrificed 3 liters of blood for me, and lost your life in a barren mountain. This time, you disregarded your own life, risking your life for me, risking your life for me. I, Bufan Yi, am content to have a confidant like you. As Yi Fan spoke, he tilted his head back again and downed the wine in his cup. Akatsuki's eyes reddened. Her lips were pursed and she didn't say anything. She raised the cup of 100 flowers drunk and downed it in one gulp. The words confidant melted her heart in an instant, as if water had been poured onto snow. They went from being partners to being friends, and then from being friends to confidant. Only the 2 of them knew how much they had gone through together. To have Yi Fan treat her as a confidant, her life was worth it. When she thought of this, 2 drops of crystal-clear tears flowed from Akatsuki's eyes. Yi Feishue and Succubus listened quietly. This second cup of wine is for you, Succubus. Yi Fan filled the cup and toasted to Succubus. Succubus raised his head and looked at Yi Fan. Succubus, out of the 3 of us, I've known you for the shortest amount of time, said Yi Fan to the Succubus. However, the words you said to me on the execution field had moved me beyond words. I don't dare to accept such praise. What did I, Yi Fan, do to deserve your favor? Succubus, you're a good girl. To be able to meet you in this life is my, Bufan's, blessing. Today, this cup of wine is for no other reason than the fact that you were able to watch me at the execution field. You're so loyal to me. This cup of wine is for you. As Yi Fan said this, he downed the cup of 100 flowers drunk. At this moment, Succubus's face was already covered in tears. He raised his cup and downed the large cup of 100 flowers drunk in one gulp. The 3rd cup of wine is for you, Feishue. Yi Fan said to Yi Feishue as he poured the wine. Among the 3 of us, you're the closest to me by blood. In terms of seniority, you have to call me Ancestor Yi. Haha. Yi Fan said as he put down the wine jar and raised his cup. But I still like it when you call me Brother Yi. Yi Fan said to Yi Feishue with a smile, Today, I'll recognize you as my sister. From now on, if anyone dares to bully you, you can tell your Brother Yi. Brother Yi will make the decision for you. Come, let your brother toast you. As Yi Fan said this, he gulped down the wine. As he drank, 2 lines of tears silently fell from Yi Fan's eyes. The depth of Yi Feishue's feelings for him was something that he was very clear about. When he said this to Yi Feishue, he looked relaxed and casual, but in reality, his heart felt like it was being stabbed by a knife. Big Brother Yi. Yi Feishue's voice choked with sobs when she saw the hot tears flowing from the corner of Yi Fan's eyes. Chapter 651. Come, wipe your tears. It's not like we're parting forever. Yi Fan put down the stone cup with tears in his eyes and smiled at the 3 of them. You should be happy that I didn't die. Come, smile. If you don't smile, I won't let you eat. The three of them who had tears streaming down their faces were instantly amused by Yi Fan. That's more like it. Come, try my cooking. Yi Fan smiled and began to serve food to the three of them. Hong Ji, you're from Japan and you love to eat fish. Try the base I made this time and see how it tastes. Yi Fan picked up a large piece of fresh fish and placed it in Akatsuki's bowl. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, I've already scaled the fish this time." Akatsuki understood what he meant and her heart warmed. Yi Fan purposely didn't scale the fish he made last time to remind her that he already had a family. This time, Yi Fan had already treated her as a close female friend and he no longer rejected her from his heart. Thinking of this, Akatsuki's face turned red and she smiled. Only she could understand the meaning behind Yi Fan's words. Succubus, the Doujinshi Palace is luxurious and has everything. These dishes might be considered plain tea for you. Yi Fan said as he picked up a piece of Donpa pig knuckle and placed it in Succubus's bowl. However, I've specially boiled this Donpa pig knuckle with ginseng soup. It's very nourishing for the body. Last time, your spiritual energy was sucked dry by Qi Yao and your body wasn't as good as before. Although you've mostly recovered, you haven't fully recovered. Eat more this time to replenish your vitality. Succubus's eyes were filled with tears as he nodded heavily. She hadn't seen Yi Fan since the last time she parted ways with Yi Fan. She thought that Yi Fan had forgotten about her, but she didn't expect that Yi Fan was still thinking about her body and even made dishes to nourish her body. This moved her greatly. And then, my good little sister, Fei Xue. Yi Fan used his chopsticks to pick up several plump river shrimps from the plate and place them in Yi Fei Xue's bowl. He smiled and said, "I know you like to eat shrimps the most. This time, I specially picked a few of the fattest ones for you. Eat more. Don't lose weight. If you lose weight, your father will be heartbroken." "You? How did you know that I like to eat river prawns?" Yi Fei Xue asked Yi Fan in shock, her face full of disbelief. "Last time when the three of us ate at the inn, I noticed that you didn't eat much of the other dishes and only liked to eat this river prawn, so I knew that you were a picky eater," Yi Fan said to Yi Fei Xue with a smile. Yi Fei Xue pursed her lips and 2 streams of hot tears flowed down her cheeks. Ever since she was young, other than her parents, the only one who could remember what she liked to eat was Yi Fan. "What, you don't like to eat it? Then give it to me." Yi Fan deliberately used his chopsticks to pick up the river prawns in Yi Fei Xue's bowl. "Hey, hey, hey!" Yi Fei Xue saw that Yi Fan was going to take the river prawns from her bowl and immediately protected her bowl with both hands. She anxiously said, Who said I don't like to eat?" Seeing Yi Fei Xue's anxious expression, the three of them couldn't help but laugh. "As for that girl Xiao Zhao, she likes to eat everything that I make. She doesn't refuse anything that comes to her." Yi Fan smiled as he picked up an empty plate and began to put food on the plate one by one. "This girl has a big appetite now. I have to give her more food." As Yi Fan spoke, he placed the plate full of food in front of Xiao Zhao. Baihu licked her lips, lowered her head, and began to eat with big mouthfuls. This banquet lasted for more than 2 hours. During the banquet, the 4 of them talked and laughed wittily, toasting each other and speaking freely. From time to time, they would burst into laughter. In order to make the 3 of them happy, Yi Fan tried his best. He even told the 3 of them the story of how when he was a child, in order to go out and play, he secretly made the key to the gate behind his father, Yi Kong's back. This made the 3 of them tremble and laugh incessantly. A jar of aged wine, 100-flower intoxication, numbered more than 5 kilograms. The 4 of them unknowingly drank it all. This 100-flower intoxication had a flowery fragrance that assailed their nostrils. It was incomparably mellow, but the after-effects were extremely strong. One must know that when Eldritch was alive, this wine was already nearly 100 years old. Now that more than 300 years had passed, the after-effects of this wine could be imagined. Yi Fan's cultivation was not what it used to be. This little bit of wine was simply not worth mentioning to him. But the remaining 3 of them were not so sober. At this time, the 3 of them had crimson-red complexions. Their eyes were blurry and their expressions were absent-minded. They didn't even have the strength to hold the wine cup. The first to collapse was Yifeshua. She had no cultivation and was the youngest, so she quickly collapsed on the stone table with a smile on her face. "Silly girl, you drank so much when you couldn't drink." Yifan laughed as he picked up Yifeshua, who reeked of alcohol, by the waist. "You guys wait for me. I'll go and settle this girl down," Yifan said to Akatsuki and Succubus. He picked up the unconscious Yifeshua, tapped the ground with the tip of his foot, and flew upstairs. He found a comfortable and tidy stone room and gently placed Yifeshua on the large stone bed. He even brought a quilt and covered Yifeshua with it. He also helped her tidy up the messy hair on her forehead. "Brother Yi, don't leave me alone," Yifeshua, who reeked of alcohol, mumbled vaguely as she turned over. "Silly girl." Yifan smiled as he tucked Yifeshua in. He then stood up, closed the stone door, and went to the stairs. "Hongji, Succubus, drink some hot tea to sober up," Yifan said to Akatsuki and Succubus downstairs as he walked down the stone stairs. But before he could say the word sober, Yifan stopped talking. He saw that on the stone table, Akatsuki and Succubus, who reeked of alcohol, were quietly lying on the stone table. Their chests rose and fell as they fell asleep. When Yifan saw this, he shook his head and smiled. The next morning, the sun was high in the sky. On the large stone bed, Akatsuki slowly opened her eyes. With a splitting headache, she slowly sat up on the bed and looked around with sleepy eyes. This was a spacious bedroom with a stone table and stone chairs. On the stone table, there was a candlestick. The candlelight flickered and the remaining candle was red. In the corner of the bedroom, there was a brazier. The brazier was filled with charcoal ashes. The entire stone room was filled with the smell of rosin after the charcoal was burned. Beside her, Yifeshua and Succubus were sleeping soundly and snoring slightly. Looking at all this, Akatsuki smiled. In order to avoid suspicion, Yifan arranged for the 3 of them to stay in a stone room and put them on a large stone bed. In order to let them sleep soundly, he even lit candles and placed a brazier in the room. This guy was really meticulous. With a smile on her face, Yuhongji thought to herself as she got out of bed. She tidied up her hair, gently pushed open the stone door, and went out of the stone room. After she went out, Akatsuki slowly walked to the kitchen. The reason was simple. The air was filled with the smell of porridge. And the smell of porridge was coming from the kitchen. Akatsuki had been here before, so she was very familiar with the environment. She tiptoed to the entrance of the kitchen and poked her head in to look inside. In the kitchen, Yifan was holding a fan and fanning the flames in the stone stove. On the stone stove there was a stone pot. In the stone pot there was porridge boiling. The steam was dense and the smell of porridge filled the air. Akatsuki looked at Yifan cooking porridge and her heart was filled with warmth. The days she dreamed of in her heart were like this, there was nothing else she wanted. At this moment she felt that she was the happiest woman in the world. How she wished that time would stop here and never change. Akatsuki thought in her heart and looked at Yifan in the kitchen again. But at this time, there was no one in the kitchen. What was going on? Akatsuki was shocked. Where was Yifan? He was just cooking porridge in the kitchen. How did he suddenly disappear in the blink of an eye? Akatsuki quickly walked into the kitchen and looked around. The stone stove was still burning and the smell of porridge filled the air. Everything was the same, only Yifan was missing. "Who are you looking for?" Just when Akatsuki was wondering if she had seen wrongly, Yifan's voice sounded behind Akatsuki. Akatsuki instinctively turned around and found Yifan standing behind her. Akatsuki, who turned around, was shocked by Yifan, who suddenly appeared in front of her. She was shocked and her body instinctively leaned back. Swish! Yi Fan stretched out his hand and grabbed Akatsuki's waist, and pulled her back. Ah! Akatsuki gasped and was pulled in front of Yi Fan in an instant. At this time, the distance between the two was only a few inches. They were almost face to face. Yi Fan smiled and looked straight at Akatsuki. Huff, huff! Akatsuki's face was red and she was panting. She didn't know what to do. She was shocked by this sudden scene. What happened to you? Akatsuki, who was stunned, asked softly. Yi Fan didn't answer her. Instead, he pulled her into his arms. Akatsuki, who was in Yi Fan's arms, opened her eyes wide. It was as if she was in a dream. Hongji, thank you, Yi Fan said in Akatsuki's ear and hugged her tighter. Suddenly, Akatsuki's heart melted. She had imagined countless times that she would take the initiative to hug Yi Fan. But she didn't think that there would be a day when Yi Fan would take the initiative to hug her. She slowly raised her arms and hugged Yi Fan's back. 2 streams of hot tears flowed from her beautiful eyes. The moment she was waiting for had finally arrived. Hongji, I'm sorry. Yi Fan hugged Akatsuki tightly and said. Actually, the moment Akatsuki sat up from the bed, Yi Fan, who was carefully cooking porridge in the kitchen, already knew. With his current cultivation level, it was easy for him to do this. He wanted to express his gratitude to Akatsuki, but he didn't know how to express it. After thinking about it, he decided to hug Akatsuki. This action could express all his feelings. Akatsuki slowly shook her head. Tears fell silently from her face. She hugged Yi Fan tightly. It was as if Yi Fan would disappear from her sight. Tell me this isn't a dream, Akatsuki cried. Silly girl. Yi Fan stroked Akatsuki's hair and said gently. Chapter 652. Brother Yi. Brother Yi. Yi Fan and Akatsuki were hugging when Yi Feishue's voice suddenly came from outside. When Akatsuki heard this voice, she quickly let go of Yi Fan. Yi Fan smiled and reached out to wipe away Akatsuki's tears. Brother Yi. Where are you, Brother Yi? Yi Feishue's voice was getting closer and closer. I'm here, Feishue, Yi Fan shouted towards the door. Okay, don't cry. Get ready to eat breakfast, okay? Yi Fan smiled and asked Akatsuki. Akatsuki nodded obediently. Brother Yi. Yi Feishue's figure appeared at the kitchen door. Sister Hongji, you're here too, Yi Feishue said when she saw Akatsuki. Feishue Mimi, you're up too. Why didn't you sleep a little longer? Akatsuki pretended to be nonchalant as she asked Yi Feishue. I was hungry, so I woke up, hee. Yi Feishue said with a smile. You drank so much last night, how could you not be hungry? Yi Fan smiled and said to Yi Feishue, look at how drunk you were last night. You don't look like a girl at all. I didn't say anything last night, right? Yi Feishue anxiously asked Yi Fan. You were so drunk that you passed out. How could you have the strength to talk? Yi Fan smiled. Oh, that's good, that's good. Yi Feishue let out a long breath and said to herself. What a strong smell of porridge. As the 3 of them were talking, Succubus appeared at the entrance of the kitchen. At this time, her hair was like a waterfall. There was a smile on her face, and she had just finished washing up. She looked very charming. Everyone's here. Prepare to eat. Yi Fan smiled as he turned to Akatsuki and said, Hongji, go and wake up that wretched girl Xiao Zhao, don't let her fall asleep. At the banquet yesterday, Yi Fan had also poured a large cup of 100 flowers drunk for Xiao Zhao. Xiao Zhao never rejected anything that Yi Fan gave her. Of course, Xiao Zhao was now a fox, and her spiritual power was not as strong as before. Soon, she could not resist the alcohol and fell asleep on the table. She had been by Yi Fan's side all day and all night, regardless of wind or rain. She almost did not get a good night's sleep. Now that the wine was in her stomach, she naturally fell asleep. In order to let Xiao Zhao have a good rest, Yi Fan carried her to her original room and put a flaming stone next to Xiao Zhao's pillow to help her get rid of the cold. Akatsuki nodded and walked out of the kitchen to call Xiao Zhao. When Akatsuki carried the sleepy Baihu down the stairs, the stone table was already filled with a simple but sumptuous breakfast. There was a pot of fragrant rice porridge, a few trays of steaming buns, a few plates of side dishes, and 4 salted duck eggs. The smell of porridge filled the air. As soon as Baihu smelled the aroma, she immediately jumped down from Akatsuki's arms and jumped onto the stone table in front of Yi Fan. Her eyes shined as she looked at the food on the table. Come, come, come. Everyone has a bowl of rice porridge, a salted duck egg, and a tray of buns. Don't fight over them. Yi Fan smiled as he picked up the bowls and personally filled the porridge for the women. The women happily received the food that Yi Fan handed over. They first took a deep sniff, then picked up the spoons, opened their red lips, and slowly ate. Xiao Zhao, brother Yi is on your side. I'll give you 2 trays of buns and 2 salted duck eggs, Yi Fan said as he pushed his food in front of Baihu. Baihu looked at Yi Fan with a pair of crystal-clear eyes with a puzzled expression. As far as she knew, the food stored in the Lingyun cave was enough to last them for several years. She didn't understand why Yi Fan would do this. Brother Yi, why aren't you eating? Yi Feishue, who was sipping her porridge, asked when she saw Yi Fan give all the food to Baihu. Akatsuki and Succubus also stopped and looked at Yi Fan. When I was suffering on Feishue Peak, I met the mountain god of Mount Everest. Yi Fan smiled and explained to everyone. He personally fed me food and wine. He even gave me a date. Date? Akatsuki asked curiously. Ever since I ate this date, I don't know why, but I didn't feel hungry or thirsty at all. My stomach was full and I was full of energy, Yi Fan said as he told the 3 of them what had happened. You didn't feel hungry after eating it? Yi Feishue frowned and said, could it be that this thing is? She vaguely felt that she had seen this thing in her father's study before, but she couldn't remember what it was at the moment. If I'm not wrong, this thing is the rumored fiery sun date, Succubus said. Fiery sun date? Yi Fan asked in return. Yes, it's the fiery sun date. Yi Feishue suddenly realized and said, I heard that after eating this thing, one cannot eat or drink for half a year. Brother Yi, the date you ate must be this thing. Sister Feishue is right. Succubus nodded and said, I once heard Master Chui say that within the famous mountains and rivers, there are often some heavenly treasures. The fiery sun date is one of them. This thing absorbs the essence of the plants in the mountains and rivers and takes 100 years to mature. It is very rare in the world. If a person consumes it, their body will be strong, their lifespan will be prolonged, and their foundation will be strengthened. They can also not eat or drink for half a year and be full of energy and refreshed. To be honest, in the storeroom of the Tsuaming Hall, there is a fiery sun date. It was given to Master Chui by a Persian emissary when he visited him. Since the mountain god is a god, he must have given this thing. When Yi Fan heard this, he nodded slowly. It seems that the date he ate at that time was the fiery sun date. After breakfast, Yi Fan took the 3 people to the back garden of the Lingyun cave to enjoy the scenery. They saw the birds chirping and the fragrance of the flowers, the stream murmuring, and the exotic flowers and plants. It was a beautiful sight. Yi Fan took the 3 people to the moon-gazing pavilion on the peak of the mountain to play. They drank tea and chatted, showing the hospitality of a host. In the blink of an eye, another day passed. The sun was setting in the west and Mingyu was hanging high in the sky. You guys stay here and admire the moon. I'll make dinner for you. In the pavilion, Yi Fan stood up and said to the 3 people with a smile. I really want to stay here and admire the moon, but I'm afraid I won't be able to do so. The succubus in a black jade robe stood up from the stone bench and said to Yi Fan, I've already been here for a day and a night. If I don't go back now, Headmaster Chui will punish me. After Yi Fan heard this, he remained silent. All good things must come to an end. It's time for me to go. Succubus looked at Akatsuki and Yi Feishue and said with a smile, Hongji Feishue, I'm very happy to have met you. If there's a chance in the future, I hope you can come to the Tsuaming Hall to play. I'll be the host. Yi Feishue and Akatsuki saw that Succubus was about to leave and immediately stood up. Succubus, take care. If there's a chance, I'll definitely come and play with you. Yi Feishue said to Succubus. Okay. Succubus smiled and nodded at Yi Feishue. Have a safe trip. Take care. Akatsuki held Succubus' hand and said. You too. Be careful. Take care. Succubus patted Akatsuki's hand and said sincerely. She already knew the reason why Yi Fan stayed with Matsumoto Takeyoshi from Chuiziwan. On the surface, Akatsuki obeyed Matsumoto Takeyoshi's orders, but in reality, she was secretly helping Yi Fan find the cauldron and risking her life. Because of this, she told Akatsuki to be very careful. Akatsuki understood what she meant and nodded with a smile. Xiao Zhao, I'm leaving. Succubus leaned over and patted Baihu's fluffy head and said with a smile. Woo! Baihu affectionately rubbed her head against Succubus' hand and whimpered. Okay, I'm leaving. Succubus stood up and said as he recited the cloud-soaring immortal technique. Whoosh! A large cloud of auspicious clouds instantly formed under Succubus' feet and lifted Succubus up into the sky. Akatsuki and Yi Feishue waved goodbye to Succubus on top of the auspicious clouds. Wait for me here. I'm going to send her off, Yi Fan said. With a thought, he turned into a dazzling star and rose up into the sky, chasing after the auspicious clouds. Whoosh! The star was like a bolt of lightning and instantly rushed above the auspicious clouds. In the blink of an eye, Yi Fan stepped onto Succubus' auspicious clouds. You? Why are you here? Seeing Yi Fan suddenly appear beside him, Succubus, who was originally depressed, was suddenly surprised and happy. Your spiritual energy is not pure and your cultivation level is not as good as before. Yi Fan looked at Succubus and said, How can I be at ease if you go back alone on a cloud? What if you meet that bastard Chi Yao again? Wouldn't you be like a lamb in a tiger's den? Succubus felt a warmth in his heart when he heard this. Riding a cloud is too slow. Come, I'll take you, Yi Fan said as he grabbed Succubus' hand. At the same time, he had a thought. Whoosh! The rainbow ball of light appeared again and completely enveloped the two of them. In an instant, they pierced through the clouds and left a long trail behind them as they sped towards the Tsuaming Hall. Succubus, who was inside the ball of light, was stunned. This was the first time in her life that a man had held her hand. She looked straight at Yi Fan and her eyes flashed. All of a sudden, she felt as if time had stopped. Thank you for what you said to me on the execution field. Yi Fan turned around and looked at Succubus as he spoke. Did I say something wrong? Under the starlight, Succubus, whose face was red, asked Yi Fan shyly with his beautiful eyes. What do you think? Yi Fan asked Succubus back. I don't know. Succubus lowered his head and his face became even redder. Yi Fan didn't say anything. Instead, he tightened his grip on Succubus' soft hand. He really wanted to tell Succubus that she was wrong, but he didn't dare to say this. He was afraid to hear the sound of Succubus' heart breaking. Seeing this, Succubus didn't ask any more questions. She knew in her heart that Yi Fan couldn't answer this question. The reason was very simple. He was a man with a family. Yi Fan not answering this question was the best answer for her. When Succubus thought of this, she mustered up her courage and instantly grabbed Yi Fan's hand. Their fingers intertwined. She suppressed her pounding heart. Her palms were burning. She lowered her head shyly and didn't say anything. Yi Fan's heart skipped a beat. He frowned, but he didn't refuse. Chapter 653. Meanwhile, Yi Fan was holding the succubus's hand and they were traveling at lightning speed. Very soon, they arrived above the golden battle palace. "I'm here," Succubus said gently as it turned to Yi Fan. "It's getting late. Have a good rest and remember to say hello to Brother Chui for me," Yi Fan said as he tidied up Succubus's hair. It was clear that he had no intention of going down. Akatsuki and Yi Feishue were still waiting for him in the Lingyun cave, so he was worried about them. Will you still come here to see me?" Succubus said as its eyes reddened and it tightened its grip on Yi Fan's hand. "This isn't a parting of life and death, so why are you crying?" Yi Fan smiled as he wiped away Succubus's tears. "I promise you, I'll come here to see you whenever I have the chance." "Really?" The succubus raised her head and looked at Yi Fan. Her beautiful eyes were as gentle as water and glistened with tears. "When have I ever lied to you?" Yi Fan smiled as he scratched Succubus's nose. Hearing this, the succubus smiled through her tears. "Alright, let's go back, okay?" Yi Fan said gently as he stroked Succubus's smooth, black hair. "Okay." Succubus nodded. She reluctantly let go of Yi Fan's hand. She moved the cloud and slowly floated downwards. While they were falling, the succubus kept looking back at Yi Fan. Her face was filled with tenderness and love. Yi Fan smiled and waved his hand. After Succubus's figure floated into the Dojin Palace, Yi Fan used his movement technique and turned into a dazzling streak of light. It pierced through the clouds like a shooting star and flew toward the Lingyun cave at high speed. The starlight was like lightning, shuttling through the clouds like a sword at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, it had flown thousands of miles away. "Hehehe. I didn't expect you to have such good luck with women. You're not satisfied even after getting Fujiwara no Chiko. You even charmed my junior sister to such an extent. I really couldn't tell that you were a master of love." Yi Fan, who had transformed into a star, was traveling at high speed above the clouds. Suddenly, a familiar voice came clearly from the clouds about 1,000 feet in front of him. When Yi Fan, who was within the starlight, heard this voice, the corners of his mouth curved upwards. One can wear out iron shoes in a fruitless search, only to find it by chance. The person he had been looking for had actually delivered himself to his doorstep. Whoosh! With a thought, Yi Fan stopped and floated in the clouds, looking at the opposite side with a smile. Whoosh! A young man wearing a gorgeous black robe slowly floated out of the clouds 1,000 feet away. This person looked to be in his 20s. He had a handsome face, red lips, and white teeth. He was extremely scholarly and elegant. He wore a scholar's headband on his head, and held a white fan in his hand. His starry eyes shone with an evil light. This person was none other than the leader of the 4 protectors of the Tsuaming Hall, Qi Yao. "I didn't expect you to have the guts to appear again. I'm really surprised." Yi Fan, who was standing with his hands behind his back, stepped into the void and smiled. "During the demon-slaying conference, you really stole the limelight." The handsome Qi Yao waved his white fan and smiled at Yi Fan. "You transcended the tribulation of heavenly thunder, obtained the power of the spirit phoenix, defeated the Yin-Yang 8 masters, and killed your century-old enemy. It really can be said that you're a phoenix reborn from the ashes. I'm really envious of you." Heh. "What? You didn't come to find me today just to congratulate me, did you?" Yi Fan smiled and asked Qi Yao. "Could it be that you came to absorb my spiritual power? Look at you. You're still brooding over what happened last time." Qi Yao closed his white fan and patted his palm with the fan. He smiled and said, "What happened last time was my fault, but you can't blame me for it. I originally wanted to find junior sister to cultivate together, but who would have thought that you would interfere? If it were you, you wouldn't have let it go either. Furthermore, not only should you not blame me for this, you should thank me." "Thank you?" Yi Fan asked with an evil smile. "Thank you for what? If I hadn't humiliated you repeatedly and attacked you, how could junior sister's heart beat faster and be so devoted to you?" Succubus smiled. Strictly speaking, I'm your matchmaker. So you're saying that I should thank you? Yifan stared at Qi Yao and asked. Forget it, forget it. Let's not talk about this anymore. Qi Yao waved at Yifan and smiled. I came to find you today because I have something important to discuss with you. You have something important to discuss with me? Heh. Yifan laughed coldly. Perfect, I have something important to discuss with you as well. Do you want to avenge junior sister? Or do you hate me for humiliating you last time? Qi Yao smiled and asked Yifan. We'll settle old and new debts together. Yifan smiled. Qi Yao first went to the Yi clan's ancestral home to steal the weapon forging manual. Then, he flirted with his beloved wife, Fujiwara no Chiko. Then, he sucked away Succubus's spiritual power and used Succubus as a hostage. He punched and kicked Yifan and mocked him. Each and every one of these incidents caused Yifan's blood to boil with rage. Buzz, as Yifan spoke, the spirit energy around him surged in a domineering manner and 7 colored flames rose. Behind his back, he slowly clenched his fists and made a cracking sound. You'll definitely be interested in what I'm going to tell you. Listen to me first. Qi Yao saw the evil smile on Yifan's face and knew that Yifan was going to make a move on him. Thus, he explained, if you're not interested, it won't be too late for us to make a move. I'll count to 3. You'd better finish your sentence. Within the flames, Yifan said calmly, after the count of 3, I'll take your life. Qi Yao smiled and shook his head. 1. Yifan began to count. His voice was calm and cold, and there was an aura of death in his words. Qi Yao looked at Yifan calmly with a pair of bright eyes. With his hands behind his back, he smiled and kept his mouth shut. 2. Yifan began to count to 2. The evil smile on his face became more and more strange. Qi Yao raised his head and opened his white fan with a snap. He waved it lightly and confidently, as if he had a card up his sleeve. 3. Yifan squeezed out the 3rd number from between his teeth. Boom! As soon as Yifan said 3, the 7 colored flames around his body shot up to the sky with a boom. At the same time, Yifan's right hand turned into a claw and he activated his exquisite and strange body movement technique. With a whoosh, he turned into a white lightning bolt and went straight for Qi Yao, who was hundreds of feet away. His speed was as fast as lightning. When he spoke, the light claw was less than 3 inches in front of Qi Yao. Looking at Qi Yao, she was facing Yifan's celestial body movement technique, without any change in her expression. Even if Mt Tai collapsed in front of her, her expression would not change. 9 cauldrons. When Yifan's lightning-like light claw was about to touch Qi Yao's handsome face, Qi Yao softly spat out 2 words. These 2 words from Qi Yao's mouth made Yifan, who had already had the intention to kill, open his eyes wide in shock. In a flash, Yifan's mind moved and the red light claw in his hand stopped in front of Qi Yao, less than half an inch away. Whoosh! The airflow created by Yifan's body movement technique blew Qi Yao's long black hair high up in the air. Her black robe also fluttered, making flapping sounds. How about it? Are you interested in listening? Qi Yao asked Yifan calmly with a smile on her face. What do you mean? Yifan asked Qi Yao coldly, his light claw still aimed at Qi Yao. Matsumoto Takeyoshi is looking for the 9 cauldrons, and you have joined his camp to help him find the cauldrons. There must be something fishy, Qi Yao said with a smile. It is obvious that Matsumoto Takeyoshi has something that you are afraid of, or rather, something that you care about. Yifan did not speak after hearing this. The light claw in his hand was still flashing red. Your spiritual power is profound and you have a unique skill. There is nothing that you are afraid of. In other words, Matsumoto Takeyoshi has something that you care about. Qi Yao continued with a smile. I have seen you twice recently, but I did not notice your wife, Fujiwara no Chiko. In addition, Fujiwara no Chiko is Matsumoto Takeyoshi's woman. Based on this speculation, you are with Matsumoto Takeyoshi most likely because of that Japanese beauty. Yifan frowned and still did not speak. If I am not wrong, Matsumoto Takeyoshi must have something that is vital to the life of the traitor, Fujiwara no Chiko. He is using it to threaten you to help him find the cauldrons, Chiyao said as she smiled and asked Yifan, am I right? Yifan stared at Chiyao. He was looking at Chiyao's eyes. Whether a person was lying or not, their eyes were the best indicator. Chiyao smiled and her eyes were calm. After a long time, Yifan retracted his spiritual claw and slowly lowered his arm. It seems that I was right. Chiyao looked at Yifan's expression and said with a smile. What do you want to discuss with me? Yifan asked coldly. I recommend myself to join Matsumoto Takeyoshi and secretly help you find the cauldrons, Chiyao said. Yifan was shocked when he heard this. What? You don't believe me? Chiyao asked Yifan. Why should I believe you? Yifan asked. If I want to join Matsumoto Takeyoshi's faction, it will be as easy as pie. I don't need to tell you, Chiyao said as she extended her hand toward a mountain below the clouds. Whoosh! A dazzling beam of green light shot out from his palm and shot straight to the top of the mountain. Boom! Rocks were sent flying and dust was sent flying. A large chunk of this medium-sized mountain was directly shaved off by the Chiyao's palm. Yifan frowned when he saw this. Chiyao's cultivation compared to last time was like heaven and earth. My yin-yang dual birth technique has reached a certain level. If I fight with you now, although I can't guarantee that I can defeat you, I can still retreat safely. Chiyao said to Yifan, Matsumoto Takeyoshi is a person who knows what's good for him. He knows that you and I are incompatible. If I go to him, he will definitely treat me like a distinguished guest when he sees my cultivation. So if I want to help you, Matsumoto Takeyoshi will definitely not notice. Why do you want to help me? Yifan asked Chiyao, what do you get for helping me? I can't tell you that. Chiyao said to Yifan, but I can guarantee that our interests will not conflict. I just want you to help me with one thing. What is it? Yifan asked with a frown. Chiyao smiled and whispered a few words into Yifan's ear. Chapter 654. In the full moon pavilion on Fengming Mountain, Akatsuki and Yi Feishua sat on stone stools. Each had their own thoughts as they stared blankly at the Mingyu hanging high in the sky. Baihu lay quietly on the stone table. Her expression was calm and her eyes were like limpid autumn waters. Whoosh, a white star shot out from the clouds at high speed and headed straight for the full moon pavilion. It was as fast as lightning. Buzz. When it was a few dozen feet away from the full moon pavilion, the bright star suddenly slowed down. Within the star, the black-robed Yifan slowly landed in front of the full moon pavilion. When Yi Feishua saw that Yifan had returned, she immediately stood up and said to Yifan, Brother Yi, you're back. Yifan replied. His gaze was fixed on Yi Feishua. He frowned and asked, At this time Yi Feishua had already changed into her original clothes. She carried a bag and looked like she was in a hurry. I've been out for many days. My father must be looking for me all over the world. Yi Feishua smiled and said to Yifan, I've eaten, drunk, slept, and played in this Lingyun cave. I'm already satisfied. It's time to go back and see my father. Otherwise, he'll be worried sick. Yifan slowly nodded after hearing this. This brat had snuck out and had been out for quite some time already. Old man Yi was already so old, and he only had one daughter. At this time, there was no need to guess. He must be very anxious. You girl, only now do you remember your father. Yifan smiled and said to Yi Feishua, if your father knew that you were having so much fun here, he definitely wouldn't forgive you. Let's go. I'll send you back and ask for a favor for you. That's good. Yi Feishua smiled at Yifan and said, with you interceding for me, My father definitely won't blame me. What if I don't help you? Yi Fan asked Yi Feishue with a smile. Then I'll tell my father that you're the Yi family's ancestor, Yi Bufan. I'll make him kneel 3 times and kowtow 9 times to you. Yi Feishue covered her mouth and laughed evilly. What a sharp-tongued girl, Yi Fan said with a smile. Lu, the mischievous Yi Feishue, made a face at Yi Fan. Hong Ji, I'm going to send Feishue home. You and Xiao Zhao wait for me here, Yi Fan said to Akatsuki. You send Feishue home. I'll take care of Xiao Zhao. The considerate Akatsuki came to Yi Feishue and said, Sister Feishue, take care. If there's a chance in the future, ask your brother Yi to take you to Dongying. I'll show you around and let you have as much fun as you want. Dongying? Yi Feishue's eyes lit up when she heard that. Is Dongying fun? It's fun. Akatsuki smiled at Yi Feishue and said, I'll take you to admire the cherry blossoms, soak in the hot springs, watch the snow, and eat delicious food. You'll definitely enjoy yourself and forget about home. Really? That's great. Yi Feishue cheered and turned to look at Yi Fan. Brother Yi, can you take me to Dongying when the time comes? Yi Feishue's voice became softer and softer as she spoke. At this moment, Yi Fan narrowed his eyes and looked at Yi Feishue with a mischievous smile. Yi Fan pretended to be serious and said to Yi Feishue, You wretched girl. Just now you said that thinking about your father will cause you to fall ill. Now you're thinking about going to Dongying. No wonder Elder Yi is always so anxious about you. In my opinion, Elder Yi is already going easy on you. If it were me, I would definitely break your legs. Hee. Yi Feishue chuckled at Yi Fan. You're still laughing. Yi Fan reached out and tapped Yi Feishue's forehead. Then, he grabbed Yi Feishue's arm and activated his movement technique. Ah! Yi Feishue, who had yet to react, screamed. Her body rose from the ground with Yi Fan and went straight up into the sky. Whoosh! The rainbow ball of light appeared again and pierced through the clouds at high speed, cutting across the sky. Feishue, listen to your father when you go back. Don't run away from home like this again, okay? Yi Fan said to Yi Feishue inside the rainbow ball of light. I'm just worried about you. Yi Feishue held Yi Fan's arm tightly and said, Silly girl, Brother Yi knows that you're doing this for my sake. Yi Fan patted Yi Feishue's hand and said, But you're a girl and you're still young. You don't know how dangerous this world is. If something goes wrong, won't Brother Yi be sad for the rest of his life? Will you feel sad for me? Yi Feishue lifted her head and looked at Yi Fan with a pair of eyes that were as clear as water as she asked in a gentle voice. What do you think? Yi Fan looked down at Yi Feishue and asked gently. I understand, Brother Yi. Yi Feishue nodded sensibly when she heard Yi Fan's words. Brother Yi promises you that after I'm done with Chico's matter, I'll take you around Dongying. I'll let your sister-in-law Chico and sister Hongji have some fun with you. Yi Fan said to Yi Feishue. Really? Yi Feishue asked excitedly. Really? Yi Fan smiled and replied. It's a promise. No going back on your word. Yi Feishue stretched out her pinky and said, Pinky swear. Pinky swear then. Yi Fan smiled and stretched out his pinky and hooked it tightly with Yi Feishue's pinky. An hour later, Yi Fan, who had turned into a streak of starlight, landed in the full moon pavilion on top of Fengming Mountain. You're back? Akatsuki, who was holding Baihu, asked Yi Fan. Yes. Yi Fan nodded and replied. Akatsuki poured a cup of hot tea and handed it to Yi Fan as she asked gently, When are we returning to the East Sea? Matsumoto Takeyoshi has no cultivation. Even if he has an expert accompanying him, it will take at least 3 days to return from Tibet to the East Sea. Yi Fan took the tea and took a sip before saying, We'll leave tomorrow morning and return to the East Sea before they do. Yes. Akatsuki nodded. After we return, if Matsumoto Takeyoshi asks where you've been these past few days, just tell him the truth. Yi Fan looked at Akatsuki. He hates it when people lie to him. If you tell him the truth, he won't do anything to you. If he really blames you, just push the blame to me and say that I asked you to go to Tibet to save me. Didn't he say that I'm the leader and you're the deputy? You have to listen to me in everything. There's one thing I don't understand. Akatsuki frowned and said to Yi Fan, what was the purpose of Matsumoto Takeyoshi going to the execution field? To save you? To kill you? Akatsuki could not understand Matsumoto Takeyoshi's intentions. Maybe it's a combination of both, Yi Fan said meaningfully. What do you mean? Akatsuki asked. Yi Fan's words made her even more confused. The disaster of the demon-slaying conference has passed. There's no point in guessing Matsumoto Takeyoshi's purpose in attending the conference in disguise. Don't worry about it, Yi Fan said to Akatsuki. That's true. Akatsuki nodded. Don't think so much. It's getting late. Go back to your room and rest. We still have to hurry tomorrow morning. Yi Fan said. Yes, you should rest early too, Akatsuki said to Yi Fan. Yi Fan nodded. Akatsuki put down Baihu and walked down the stone step. Time passed quickly and it was the next morning. After the two had a simple meal, they opened the cave door and went outside the Lingyun cave. At this time, the sun was rising from the east and the sun was shining brightly. There were no clouds in the sky for thousands of miles. Yi Fan closed the cave door and sealed the boundary. He chanted a mantra and used the cloud riding technique. Whoosh, clouds and mist appeared under Yi Fan's feet and auspicious clouds appeared. The auspicious clouds carried the two of them and slowly flew out of the Lingyun cave, straight into the sky. The sky was clear and bright, and there were no clouds in the sky for thousands of miles. If they used an astonishing movement technique to travel, they would easily attract the attention of the commoners. At this moment, using the cloud riding technique to travel could completely conceal the two of them, which was the most suitable method. The auspicious clouds rolled under their feet as they traveled at lightning speed. In less than an hour, they had flown thousands of miles and arrived in the sky above a small town. Yi Fan had no intention of looking down at the scenery. He only wanted to hurry on. However, on the ground, he could clearly hear the quarreling voices of a few children. At this time, his spiritual energy was not what it used to be. He did not need to concentrate too much to hear the voices from tens of thousands of feet below. Stinking beggar, go back to your hometown. Scram. If you don't scram, I'll beat you to death. Beat him. Beat him to death. On the ground, 7 or 8 teenagers casually picked up the broken stones on the ground. As they cursed, they threw stones at a youth in ragged clothes in the distance. These teenagers looked to be about 11 or 12 years old. They were dressed gorgeously and dressed well. It was obvious that they were children of rich families. However, the youth who was being beaten was the complete opposite. He was short and skinny. He looked to be less than 10 years old. His clothes were ragged, his hair was unkempt, and his face was dirty. He was barefoot and dirty from head to toe. It was obvious that he was a child of a poor family. The stones kept hitting the skinny youth's body. The skinny youth was angry, but he did not dare to say anything. He raised his arms to protect his head and kept retreating with his bare feet. Ha ha! Beat this fatherless son of a bitch to death! Beat him to death! Beat him to death! Seeing the skinny youth keep retreating and not dare to resist, the teenagers became bolder. They cursed and scolded as they stepped forward. The broken stones in their hands kept hitting the skinny youth's body. The skinny youth was still retreating to the corner of the wall. However, when he heard them scolding him for not having a mother or father, he was instantly angry. I have a father. I have a mother. The young man stopped in his tracks and roared loudly at the half-grown brats who were bullying him. You are a wild boy, a son of a bitch, a fatherless and motherless beggar. Ha ha ha, the half-grown boys laughed loudly. I am not a beggar. I have a father. I have a mother. The ragged youth roared angrily. As he roared, He used his stained sleeve to wipe the tears from his eyes. But, just as the young man was speaking, a stone flew from the opposite side and hit him squarely on the forehead. The youth groaned and covered his head with his hand. He slowly squatted down. Bright red blood kept flowing out from between his fingers. Ha ha ha, I hit him, ha ha ha. The leader of the group, a half-grown boy, laughed complacently. Looking at everything on the ground, Yi Fan frowned. Hongji, let's go down. Chapter 655. Whoosh. Just as the youths were feeling smug and laughing, Yi Fan and Akatsuki suddenly appeared behind the injured youth. The sudden appearance of the two of them gave these rich kids a fright. Hey, where did you come from? The leader of the group, a dandy in green, asked Yi Fan. He saw that Yi Fan and Akatsuki were well-dressed and good-looking, so he didn't dare to underestimate them. Yi Fan didn't pay attention to them and went directly to the injured youth. Little brother, are you okay? Yi Fan crouched down and asked the injured youth. The youth with his hand on his forehead heard Yi Fan's question and immediately replied, Thank you, sir, I'm fine. As the youth spoke, blood continued to flow from the gaps between his fingers. You're injured to this extent and you still say you're fine. Akatsuki, whose face was covered by a veil, took out a white handkerchief and crouched down to stop the youth's bleeding and bandage his wound. Thank you, sister, I'm fine, I'm really fine. Seeing that Akatsuki was bandaging his wound, the youth blushed and lowered his head. Akatsuki, who was under the veil, saw this and smiled. This youth was young, but he understood the principle that men and women should not touch each other. What's your name? Why are you alone? Where are your parents? Yi Fan asked the youth. My surname is Wu and my name is Qing, the youth replied politely. My hometown was hit by a plague. My father passed away 3 years ago and my mother was infected with the plague a year ago and also passed away. I'm the only one left in the family. In order to avoid the plague, I went all the way north and came here. Yi Fan nodded after hearing this. Okay, your wound has been bandaged. You just need to rest for 1 or 2 months and you'll be fine. Akatsuki said, That was really dangerous. If it had been a little lower, you wouldn't have been able to keep your eye. After Yi Fan heard this, he turned around and glanced at the youth in green. Thank you, sister. Thank you, sir. As the youth spoke, he knelt on the ground and kowtowed to the two of them. If Wu Qing succeeds in the future, I will definitely not forget your great kindness. You have a wound on your head, so why are you still kowtowing? Get up. Yi Fan reached out to help the youth up. The young man slowly stood up. Hongji, help me buy him a set of clothes, shoes and socks, and also buy some food. Yi Fan turned to Akatsuki and said. Akatsuki nodded and left with Baihu in his arms. No need. Seeing that Yi Fan wanted to buy him clothes and food, the young man quickly waved his hand and said, Thank you for your kindness, sir. I don't need. Gulp, as the young man spoke, his stomach made a rumbling sound. As soon as the voice came out, the young man's face turned awkward. Yi Fan smiled. Although this young man was young and penniless, he was well educated and had a scholarly look on his face. In such a difficult situation, it was really commendable that he could not be greedy and not take advantage of others. How old are you? Yi Fan asked. I am 10 years old this year. The young man replied. You look young, but you speak with a scholarly tone. You must have studied, right? Yi Fan asked. My father once taught me how to read, the young man said. Later, my father offended the nobles because of his outspokenness. He was stripped of his official position and died of depression. I studied alone. Your father was an official of the imperial court? Yi Fan frowned and asked. Yes. The young man nodded and said, My father was originally a scholar of the Hanlin Academy. Later, because he offended the great General Zhou of this dynasty, He was stripped of his official position and his family property confiscated. He was demoted to a commoner. As the young man spoke, he wiped his tears with his sleeve. Zhou Dao. Yi Fan heard this and his eyes narrowed. His hands involuntarily clenched into fists. What is your father's name? Yi Fan asked the young man. Wu Shilin. The young man replied. The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Yi Fan shook his head and sighed. Perhaps this is the will of the heavens. After the young man heard this, his expression was sorrowful and he was silent. I will remember your father's name. In the future, when I see the crown prince of this dynasty, I will ask him to redress your father's name. Then, I will let you enter the Hanlin Academy to serve the country. Yi Fan patted the young man's shoulder and said, The crown prince of this dynasty? When the young man heard Yi Fan's words, his face was immediately filled with shock. Sir can see the crown prince of this dynasty? You can redress my father's grievances? Yi Fan nodded. Sir can see the crown prince of this dynasty. Could it be that you are an important official of the imperial court? The young man asked in shock. From this person's tone, this person's relationship with the crown prince of this dynasty was definitely not ordinary. In the young man's opinion, to be able to say something like this, he was either a close official of the crown prince or an important official of the imperial court. Ha ha! Little brother, you guessed wrong. I am not a member of the imperial court. Yi Fan laughed loudly. I have only met the crown prince of this dynasty once. However, you can rest assured that the matter of your father's grievances being redressed will be resolved for you. The young man could tell that Yi Fan's tone did not seem to be joking. He immediately knelt on the ground and bowed to Yi Fan. If that is the case, then Wu Qing will thank you on behalf of my father's spirit in heaven. Stand up and speak. Stand up and speak. Yi Fan helped the young man up again. The young man stood up and said, I won't hide it from Sir. I traveled all the way north in order to rush to the capital to lodge an imperial complaint. Just now, I didn't know who Sir was, so I didn't dare to tell you. You dare to go to the capital to lodge an imperial complaint at such a young age. Your courage is commendable, but your method is not appropriate. Yi Fan said to the young man, The capital is not a place to play, and the Emperor of 10,000 vehicles is not someone you can meet whenever you want. Right now, you can't even deal with these few ruffians, so how can you talk about lodging an imperial complaint? After the young man heard this, he lowered his head in shame. You fatherless and motherless little beggar. Don't think that this young master is afraid just because you have someone backing you up. If you don't scram, this young master will beat this meddlesome fellow up as well. The leading rich youth weighed the stone in his hand as he spoke viciously. The young man in front of them was quite handsome, but he was only one person after all. He was good-looking but useless. There were 7 or 8 of them now, and each of them held a stone in their hand. They were not afraid of anyone. You! After the young man heard this, he clenched his fists and stared at the other person with a face full of anger. Do you want to take care of them yourself? Yi Fan smiled as he moved his head close to the young man's ear and whispered, Yes. The young man's eyes were burning with anger as he looked at the rich youth who had hit his forehead with the stone and whispered, I'll teach you a move so that you can beat them all to the ground right now. Yi Fan looked at the young man with a mysterious expression and said with a smile, Right now? The young man's face was shocked. He turned his head to look at Yi Fan and said in surprise, Right now. Yi Fan nodded and smiled. After the young man heard this, he had a face full of doubt. He had heard of experts in the world, but he had never heard of a move that could be learned instantly. Speaking of which, the silver-haired person in front of him looked gentle and refined, and did not seem like a martial arts expert. What, you don't believe me? Yi Fan smiled and asked the young man. The young man did not reply. You with the white hair, are you going to leave or not? If you don't leave, then this young master won't be polite anymore. The rich youth leading the group was getting impatient and scolded. Ha ha ha! The group of youths behind him burst into laughter. Yi Fan smiled and lightly waved his hand at the profanity-laced rich youth. Pfff! The rich youth spat out a mouthful of blood. A bloody tooth flew out of his mouth and flew straight into Yi Fan's hand. Ah! The rich youth screamed and covered his mouth with both hands. His mouth was full of blood. When the other rich youths saw this, they were so scared that they immediately took 3 steps back. Their faces were pale. They were all children of rich families. Their families were either rich or noble, and they all had martial arts experts guarding their homes. These youths had seen many martial arts experts before, but they had never seen such a strange thing. They had never heard of a person who could take a tooth from a distance with a wave of his hand, let alone see it. How is it? Do you believe me now? Yi Fan put the bloody tooth in front of the young man and asked with a smile. The young man was dumbfounded. He rubbed his eyes and raised his head to look at the guy who was moaning with his hand covering his mouth. His face was full of disbelief. When he was young, he heard his father tell him that there were many capable people in the palace, leaping onto roofs and vaulting over walls, coming and going like the wind, injuring people with falling leaves, and protecting one's body with energy. These things sounded unbelievable, but they were not strange to the martial arts experts in the palace. However, these things were still imaginable. But this person who looked to be in his 20s could take a tooth from a distance with a wave of his hand. This was simply unimaginable and unprecedented. It was like magic. Do you want to learn? Yi Fan smiled and asked the young man, if you want to learn, I can teach you. However, to Yi Fan's disbelief, the young man slowly shook his head. Don't you want to teach them a lesson? Why don't you want to learn? Yi Fan's eyes flashed with a strange light as he asked the young man. I do want to teach them a lesson, but I don't want to kill them. The young man said to Yi Fan, Sir, your magic is too powerful. Once I learn it, once I get angry, I will definitely hurt them. My father told me that a real man must rule the world with benevolence. Benevolence does not kill, so as to answer the heavenly Tao. Rule the world with benevolence, so as to answer the heavenly Tao. The young man's words made Yi Fan's eyes light up. His heart moved. A young man who had just turned 10 had such a chivalrous and benevolent heart. It was really commendable. You have such a state of mind at such a young age. In the future, you will definitely not be a fish in a pond. You will definitely achieve great things, Yi Fan said. Fine, today I will not teach you how to kill people. I will teach you a layer of protective spiritual energy to protect yourself in the future. As Yi Fan spoke, he reached out one hand and gently pressed it on the young man's forehead. Buzz! With a thought, Yi Fan's hand instantly emitted a white light. Whoosh! A layer of pure spiritual energy was slowly emitted from Yi Fan's palm. It instantly entered the young man's Baihui acupoint and slowly flowed through the young man's 8 extraordinary meridians. The young man only felt a domineering heat coming from the Baihui acupoint on the top of his head. It traveled all the way down to the soles of his feet. He instantly felt his whole body relax and relax. The young man understood that he was very lucky to have met an expert today. You won't be beaten in the future. Give me your hand, Yi Fan said to the young man as he withdrew his hand after sending a strand of spiritual energy into the young man's body. Chapter 656. Seeing the youth reach out his hand, Yi Fan smiled and took out the jade pendant that the crown prince had given him. He gently pressed it on the youth's palm, and at the same time, activated his spiritual energy. Buzz! Several rays of red light burst out from the intersection of the jade pendant and the youth's palm. It was dazzling. The youth's face was full of surprise, not knowing what Yi Fan was doing. After the red light dissipated, Yi Fan picked up the jade pendant and put it away. The youth immediately lowered his head and looked at his palm. In the center of his palm, there was a jade pendant imprint that was flowing with red light. On it, there was a 5-clawed golden dragon flying in the clouds. Below the golden dragon, there were 2 ancient characters written in flamboyant calligraphy. The youth looked at it for a long time, but did not recognize what these 2 characters were. "Teacher, this is..." The youth looked up at Yi Fan and asked with a puzzled expression. "This is the imprint of the crown prince of this dynasty. Keep it well," Yi Fan said to the youth. "If you have any difficulties in the future, you can go to the yamen to find the local officials and show them this imprint. With this imprint in hand, they will treat you well and will not dare to look down on you." The young man nodded his head in confusion. "Give me your left hand," Yi Fan said to the youth again. The youth obediently withdrew his right hand and extended his left hand. Yi Fan held the youth's hand with his left hand and extended his right index finger. He slowly activated his spiritual energy and wrote 3 characters in the youth's palm. The characters were wild and elegant, thin and ancient, elegant and free. Red light flashed and spiritual energy flowed. Yi Bufan. The youth looked at the red characters in his hand and read. "This is my name," Yi Fan said to the youth with a smile. "You are still young and do not know how difficult this world is and how sinister people are. In the future, if someone bullies you, you can use this palm to hit them. It will protect your life. However, you must remember, do not go around showing off in front of others. Do not use this secret technique to cause trouble and bully others. Otherwise, I will not forgive you." Since he had imparted spiritual energy and secret techniques to this young man, it was necessary for him to warn this young man what he could and could not do. If this young man were to use his skills to run amok in the future and injure others with his skills, most of the blame would be placed on him, Yi Fan. At this moment, the youth already knew that Yi Fan was a hidden expert. He hurriedly knelt on the ground. "Thank you, master." The young man acknowledged his master and kowtowed. "I'm not your master, so you don't have to worship me." Yi Fan helped the youth up and said, "The spiritual energy I pass to you and the mark on my palm will remain in your body for 10 years. After 10 years, it will disappear. Today, I originally had no intention of meddling in other people's business, but seeing you being abused and bullied at such a young age, and even having your parents hurt, I couldn't bear it and decided to lend you a hand. I hope I didn't misjudge you today." After getting up, the youth saw that Yi Fan had imparted the secret technique to him but did not accept him as a disciple. He felt somewhat disappointed. "Don't be sad." Yi Fan saw that the youth was unhappy and said with a smile, "It's not that I don't want to accept you as a disciple, but I am a person with a hard life. My life is plagued by disasters and entanglements of gratitude and grudges. Who knows when I will die? If I accept you as a disciple, you will definitely be implicated in the future. After your father's injustice is redressed, you can go to the Hanlon Academy and study hard. In the future, you will become a pillar of the country and benefit the people. It's much better than learning some killing techniques from me. What do you think?" After the youth heard this, he pursed his lips and nodded. Yi Fan smiled and patted the youth's shoulder. As he patted the youth's shoulder, he turned his head to look at the 7 or 8 hedonistic sons who were so scared that their faces were drained of blood. He raised his eyebrows and smiled evilly. These youths were already trembling in fear from Yi Fan's strange technique. Now that they saw Yi Fan looking at them with an evil smile on his face, they were so frightened that they immediately turned around and ran away. The leader of the group, whose front tooth had been removed by Yi Fan, stumbled and scrambled away, not daring to look back. "I'm back." As the two of them were talking, Akatsuki, whose face was covered by a veil, leisurely walked over from afar with Baihu in one hand and a bundle in the other. "Did you scare them?" Akatsuki, who had arrived in front of Yi Fan, asked Yi Fan with a smile as she looked at the hedonistic sons who were fleeing in all directions. "It's not that I scared them. I just pulled out a tooth, Yifan said with a smile. Akatsuki looked puzzled. You bought the item? Yifan asked. I bought it. Akatsuki handed the bundle to Yifan. I bought food, clothes, and necessities. There's also, Akatsuki said as she moved her head closer to Yifan's ear and whispered, I put 100 taels of silver in the bundle. She had been with Yifan for a long time, so she was familiar with Yifan's temperament. Yifan smiled and nodded. He reached out and took the bundle from Akatsuki. Wu Qing, take this bundle. Find a place to settle down and wait for my news. Yifan carried the bundle on the youth's back and said, I'll definitely look for you in 10 days at most and a few at least. But Mr. Yi, I still don't know where I'm going. How are you going to find me? The youth asked Yifan. Don't worry. He'll find you, Akatsuki said to the youth. The youth nodded. He had seen Yifan's abilities with his own eyes, so he didn't doubt Akatsuki's words. Wu Qing, we still have something to do, so we won't be accompanying you, Yifan said to the youth. Take care of yourself and wait for me to find you. Okay, the youth nodded. Those rascals are here again, Yifan said as he looked behind the youth. The youth was shocked. He quickly turned around and looked behind him. However, what made him feel strange was that there was nothing behind him. There was not a single person. When he turned around again, Yifan and Akatsuki had disappeared into thin air. The youth was shocked and his face was full of shock. How could the two people who were standing in front of him just now suddenly disappear? Could it be that everything he saw and heard was an illusion? However, the heavy baggage on his body, the bandaged handkerchief on his forehead, and the bloody front tooth on the ground clearly told him that everything that had just happened was real. I can tell that you have a good impression of that child, Akatsuki said as she turned to look at Yifan from above the clouds. This child and I hit it off very well. Just now, I almost took him as my disciple, Yifan said with a smile as he looked at Akatsuki. What? You're even thinking of taking him as your disciple? Akatsuki was a little shocked. She had only gone shopping for a short while. She didn't expect Yifan to have the intention of taking him as his disciple. Yifan smiled and told Akatsuki what the youth had said. Akatsuki was shocked and incredulous when she heard it. She didn't think that a 10-year-old child would have such a state of mind. No wonder you're thinking of taking him as your disciple, Akatsuki said. If I met such a talented child, I would also want to take him as my disciple. It's a pity that I can't take him as my disciple. There's nothing I can teach him. Yifan shook his head and sighed. Don't joke around, Akatsuki said to Yifan with a smile. With your current cultivation level, it's hard to find a match for you in this world. How could there be nothing you can teach him? What can I teach him? Yifan looked into Akatsuki's eyes. Turning into a demon? Killing people? Going berserk? Being possessed by evil energy? Akatsuki was startled and didn't say anything. I'm an inauspicious person. My fate is full of misfortune and calamities. Yifan turned his head and said, Anyone who follows me will be implicated and suffer unspeakably. If I take him as my disciple, wouldn't I be harming him? Akatsuki pursed her lips and didn't say anything. The demon-slaying conference is only one of the calamities in my life. There are still many calamities waiting for me. Yifan looked into the dense clouds in the distance and calmly said, Perhaps one day, I won't be as lucky as I was during the demon-slaying conference. Perhaps I'll die at the hands of others, or perhaps I'll die under the wrath of the heavens. At that time, perhaps this inauspicious person will be freed. Pay. You're not allowed to speak nonsense. Akatsuki's eyes immediately reddened when she heard Yifan's words. She reached out her hand and covered Yifan's mouth. Hongji, there's one thing that I need you to promise me. Yifan held Akatsuki's hand in his and stared into Akatsuki's beautiful eyes as he spoke. As long as you don't talk about death, I'll promise you anything. Akatsuki choked out. If, and I'm saying if, Yi Fan opened his mouth and said, "One day, something really happens to me. My soul disperses and my body and soul are destroyed. Please help me fulfill a wish." "You're speaking nonsense again." The red-eyed Akatsuki covered her ears and anxiously said, "I won't listen, I won't listen. Let me finish what I have to say." Yi Fan reached out and held Akatsuki's hands in his and said, "If that day really comes, please find a way to help me bring Chiko back to Dongying. Go to Mount Fuji to find her master, Ito Fumio, and pass on my message to him. Ask him to find a good family for Chiko who truly loves her. As long as she can live out her life peacefully and happily, even if I die, I can die in peace." Akatsuki was instantly heartbroken when she heard Yi Fan's words. It was obvious that Yi Fan was telling her what to do after his death. "Hongji, do you promise me?" Yi Fan asked Akatsuki. Akatsuki nodded with tears in her eyes. "I'm saying if." "Why are you crying?" Yi Fan wiped Akatsuki's tears. "Why are you saying all this out of the blue?" Akatsuki asked in a choked voice. "There are some things that you don't know." Yi Fan looked into the distance and said, "What is it?" Akatsuki wiped her tears and asked. In her opinion, Yi Fan's body was almost immortal now. How could he possibly die when his cultivation level was close to that of an immortal? "I'll tell you this. Don't tell anyone else," Yi Fan said to Akatsuki with a serious expression. "Tell me quickly." Akatsuki had an ominous feeling in her heart. The heavenly demon power in my body and the newly acquired phoenix dance of the 9 heavens spiritual energy are on par with each other. They're like fire and water. In addition, there's also an evil aura that's restless and difficult to suppress. Yi Fan frowned and said to Akatsuki, "I'm afraid that one day I'll be devoured by these 3 powers." Chapter 657. What's going on? Akatsuki anxiously asked Yi Fan. Akatsuki was very familiar with Yi Fan's temperament and style of doing things, but she knew nothing about Yi Fan's cultivation technique. So when Yi Fan told her that he might be devoured by the incompatible spiritual energies in his body, Akatsuki couldn't believe her ears. Yi Fan saw Akatsuki's anxious expression, so he told Akatsuki about his cultivation. Currently, there were no less than 8 types of energy flowing in his body. The mysterious sky secret essentials, which he had cultivated to the 3rd stage of the immortal realm, the phoenix dances 9 heavens. The proud moon heavenly scripture, which he had cultivated to the 1st stage, the crescent moon chapter. The heavenly demonic energy, which he could contend against immortals, and the blazing demonic energy, which he had obtained from the demonic energy. The demonic energy, which he was born with, was sealed by his brother Yi Chiu in his previous life, and now the 1st seal had been undone by Cui Ziwen. In addition, he also had the fire snake dragon orb, the ice core, the blood jade spirit phoenix, and the pure yang spiritual energy that Brother Kim had injected into his body when he unblocked his meridians in Phoenix Cry Mountain's Lingyun Cave. These 8 types of spiritual energies, whether yin or yang, hard or soft, righteous or demonic, blazing or cold, flowed in his body and intertwined. The other types of spiritual energies were fine, but the heavenly demonic energy and the demonic energy worried Yi Fan the most. Before he had obtained the Phoenix Dance's 9 heavens spiritual energy, the heavenly demonic energy, which could contend against immortals, was the most powerful of all the spiritual energies in his body. At that time, Yi Fan's mysterious sky secret art had only just reached the 2nd stage, heaven-shattering rock, while his proud moon heavenly scripture was only at the 1st stage. These 2 ultimate arts were completely unable to contend against the power of the heavenly demon. But as the saying goes, times are different. Now that Yi Fan's mysterious sky secret essentials had reached the 3rd stage, the Phoenix Dance's 9 heavens, his strength was 10 times that of the 2nd stage. His cultivation was close to that of an immortal, and as Yi Fan's cultivation continued to rise, The demonic energy seal on his body began to loosen and become stronger. The mysterious sky secret essentials, the proud moon heavenly scripture, the demonic energy, and the demonic energy, the demonic energy, the demonic energy, and the demonic energy. These 4 types of spiritual energies were surged within Ye's body. The mysterious sky secret essentials and the proud moon heavenly scripture were originally 2 supreme techniques. Since they were yin and yang, they attracted each other, so there was no conflict between them. Instead, the yin and yang were harmonious and coexisted. As for the demonic energy that Chui Ziwen had broken the first seal, although the demonic energy burned brightly and became stronger, it was independent and untamed. It didn't fuse with the mysterious sky secret essentials, the proud moon heavenly scripture, or the demonic energy, as if it didn't care about these 3 types of spiritual energies. It quietly swam within Yi Fan's body, so quiet that it was a bit scary. As a result, the mysterious sky secret essentials, the proud moon heavenly scripture, and the demonic energy formed a tripartite balance within Yi Fan's body. The 2 techniques were yin and yang, but they were incompatible with the demonic energy. The 2 were like fire and water, going back and forth within Yi Fan's meridians, neither willing to give way. If it wasn't for the fact that Yi Fan had already comprehended the supreme mantra in the poem that Zhenwu Heavenly Emperor had passed down to him and used the non-interference method to control these 2 types of spiritual energies, his spiritual energy would have been in chaos, his meridians would have been broken, and his body would have exploded. How could he still be able to travel so easily? However, although he could control these 2 types of spiritual energies, Yi Fan was very clear that being able to control them now didn't mean that he would be able to control them in the future. Both sides had already reached the immortal realm, so there was a clear distinction between good and evil. In the future, as their strength continued to increase, something big would happen sooner or later. Although the mysterious sky secret essential's strength increased tenfold with every breakthrough, its potential seemed to be much greater than the demonic energy. However, Yi Fan, who had already entered the blood demon pool, didn't dare to be careless. He was well aware of how strong the demonic energy was. One had to know that the demonic energy had an extremely special and unimaginably terrifying aspect, and that was that it would become stronger when facing a strong opponent. Gesang Duji's Golden Buddha Treasure Bowl could easily suppress the demonic energy. It didn't mean that the demonic energy was inferior to others, but it had something to do with his temperament at that time. The highest realm of the demonic energy was not to enter the blood demon pool physically, but to enter the demonic realm mentally. Both were the demonic energy. Yi Fan was instantly restrained by the Golden Buddha Treasure Bowl, and Tenmoni easily rescued Yumoji, who was also trapped by the Golden Buddha Treasure Bowl. Comparing the 2, it could be said that the difference between heaven and earth was like the difference between heaven and earth. Although he was currently in the blood demon pool, his state of mind was far from reaching the supreme realm of the demonic realm, Tenmoni, where the demonic realm was one with the demonic realm. It was true that he had obtained the demonic energy, but the stagnation of the demonic realm made him far from being able to unleash the true power of the demonic energy. It was like obtaining a peerless divine weapon but not having the power to wield the sword. No matter how powerful the divine weapon was, without the power to wield the sword, it couldn't unleash its true power at all. He still had concerns in his heart, his humanity, and his 7 emotions and 6 desires. Naturally, he couldn't raise the demonic realm to the highest realm, and naturally, he couldn't unleash the full power of the demonic energy. However, as the saying goes, everything is possible. In his current situation, it wasn't impossible for him to lose his humanity and enter the demonic realm. When he first obtained the demonic energy and left the demonic palace, he could cast aside his humanity and attack Yi Ming and Chui Ziwen, who were sincerely helping him. On the execution field, the intense flames of revenge made him as crazy as a demon. His methods were cruel and wild, and he didn't even let his opponent's primordial spirit go. These two things made Yi Fan feel a little scared. If this continued, it was only a matter of time before he entered the demonic realm. In that case, it was hard to say whether the Xiantian Secret Arts Phoenix Dance 9 Heavens and Ao Yuetian's Crescent Moon chapter could restrain the demonic energy. At that time, once the two sides met on the battlefield, they would be irreconcilable. He wouldn't even need to disperse his cultivation, and his body and soul would be destroyed. This period of transition was just the calm before the storm. It was also because of this that Yi Fan told Akatsuki about his funeral matters. After hearing Yi Fan's explanation, Akatsuki was shocked, and her heart couldn't calm down for a long time. She was shocked by the profoundness of the Central Plain's secret arts, and also felt sorry for the suffering under Yi Fan's calm appearance. This man had supreme secret arts, and his cultivation was close to that of an immortal. He seemed to be aloof and envied by others, but in reality, he was surrounded by danger. His life was hanging by a thread, and his body and soul could be destroyed at any time. She finally understood why Yi Fan told her about his funeral matters. "You fool," Akatsuki said to Yi Fan with red eyes. "If something happened to you, how could your wife become someone else's wife?" "I've already thought of a countermeasure to this problem," Yi Fan said to Akatsuki. "Once I feel that my spiritual energy is out of control, I'll rush to Pear Blossom Palace and beg Jinchan to think of a way to erase everything related to me from Chico's mind. That way, she won't remember me at all." As Yi Fan said this, tears flickered in his eyes. When he said these words, his tone was calm on the surface, but in his heart, it was as if 10,000 arrows had pierced his heart, and his intestines were being pulled out. It was said that it was better to forget each other than to help each other in times of need. However, these words were easy to say but difficult to do. Since ancient times, how many people had been able to reach such a state? Akatsuki's beautiful eyes were tightly shut, and large drops of tears flowed out of her eyes. This man had endured far too much. For the sake of his wife's happiness, he was willing to give up his life, and he didn't even hesitate to erase his memories from his wife's mind. This kind of heaven-moving and earth-moving sentiment made Akatsuki feel indescribably moved, and she was speechless. Compared to Yi Fan, Akatsuki was the complete opposite. She didn't hope that Yi Fan would be able to be with her for a long time, because she knew in her heart that the two of them would have to part sooner or later. Her only extravagant hope was that Yi Fan would remember her and not forget her. If she could have a place in Yi Fan's heart, then her life would be complete, and she would die without regrets. The two of them each had their own thoughts, and they didn't speak along the way. Stepping on the auspicious clouds, they headed straight for the eastern sea. An hour later, the rolling auspicious clouds carried the two of them to the sky above the eastern sea. At this time, above the eastern sea, the sea wind whistled, and huge waves surged to the sky. Amidst the raging waves, the huge Wuji appeared extremely small, like a fallen leaf bobbing up and down on the sea, swaying with the wind. "We're here. Remember what I told you. If Matsumoto Takeyoshi asks, tell him the truth." Yi Fan turned around and looked at Yuki Hongji. "Remember what I told you. If Matsumoto Takeyoshi asks, tell him the truth." Akatsuki nodded. "Calm your emotions first, don't let Matsumoto Takeyoshi see any clues." Yi Fan looked at the red-eyed Akatsuki and said, "Didn't you say that we would arrive before Matsumoto Takeyoshi?" Akatsuki asked Yi Fan as she wiped her eyes. "If I'm not wrong, he's already on the warship." Yi Fan looked at the Wuji bobbing up and down on the sea, and said with a serious expression, "What? Matsumoto Takeyoshi is already here?" Akatsuki's voice was filled with shock. Yi Fan turned his head to look at Akatsuki and slowly nodded. What's going on?" Akatsuki asked in shock. It's a long story, I'll explain it to you later. Yi Fan said to Akatsuki. Let's go down first. Yi Fan said as he urged the auspicious clouds under his feet to slowly descend towards the warship. On the deck of the warship, more than a dozen ninjas were urgently lowering the sails and carefully steering the ship, constantly adjusting the direction. No matter how sturdy this Wuji was, it couldn't compete with the force of nature. When they were about 100 feet away from the Wuji, Yi Fan dispersed the auspicious clouds under his feet and jumped down with Akatsuki. Schwar, the two of them landed on the deck. At this time, the sea breeze was whistling and the warship was shaking. The ninjas who were busy stabilizing the warship didn't notice the two of them at all, they were still busy with their work. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.